across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
That's a new jingle, isn't it? That's all a bit weird. Welcome to Talk. A very good afternoon. Thank you to Ian Collins. Back tomorrow between 1 and 4, the Housewife's Choice. Toodling off now to his lovely, calm life in Sevenoaks, apparently. Right, listen, you lot. Before we talk about anything in the news, today is massively, massively important. If you phone the Drive Show with myself, Jeremy Kyle, you will speak to the birthday girl. Jodie is 20-something today. How old are... 28 today, Jez, I am 28, and Cameron gave me a lovely morning. There you go. Yeah, Betty did. Anyway, so Jodie, 28. So if you do phone the show, you've got to say happy birthday to Jodie. If you send a WhatsApp today, you've got to say a lovely birthday message for Jodie. It's all about Jodie. Ryan wants it to be about him, but it's not about him. It's about Jodie today. He's just said to me, Jez, if you talk about her incessantly, we're going to fall out. We will then. You're fired. Jodie's birthday, that's what matters. 0344 499 1000. Sammy, the button, the main man is back as well. We've got a great show lined up for you. Thank you to Ian. There's so much to talk about, so many stories. I mean, the big news of the day, and I'm going to salute Ryan on this because this is brilliant work. Labour planning, without any sort of due embarrassment, to bolster its support by as much as 500,000 votes for the next election after confirming plans that it talked about in the general election that it would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to take part for the first time. Now, if I don't know, maybe you think I'm wrong, right? I sort of think life's all about life's experiences. We're talking about a bunch of kids who right now are 12 are going to decide who the next Prime Minister is. And we should have a bit of fun with this as well on Voice Note, because Ryan has made a list. Things, ladies and gentlemen, you can't do when you're 16. You can't buy alcohol or fags. You can't drive a car. You can't gamble. You can't work full-time. You can't get married, and I have to say, or enter a civil partnership, right? You can't buy fireworks. This is brilliant. You can't buy spray paint. You can't use a sunbed. You can't get a tattoo. You can't buy a bleeding lottery ticket. You could go to war. You can't sit on a jury. You can't become an MP. You can't get a mortgage, and most of all, you can't phone a radio station without asking mummy and daddy. But trust me, under Labour, you could vote for who the next Prime Minister is. You can't buy spray paint, but you can vote in it. Honest to God, they're mad. 0344 499 1000. What do you all make of that? 16 and 17-year-olds allowed to vote. That's just raising the right flag if you're Labour, isn't it? Also, the Afghan story continues. Most of the world shocked, and rightly so, this last week. 23,000 Afghans. I'm sure that many did help us before the leftists start. I don't think all of them were translators and soldiers. Have been allowed into this country under the cloak of darkness in unmarked planes. They're living in our cities and our towns. They're on benefits. They're being benefited. And the government tried to hide it from us with a super injunction that was lifted by a fabulous judge this week. And a lot of people in this country are saying, so there again, another example. We seem to favour other people against ourselves. What do you make of that? Because we find out today that the Afghans who have come to this country, not content with a brand new life on us, and some people will disagree with my stance, they're now going to sue the British government for £1 billion. That's on top of the 7 billion that it's going to cost. So, you know, the 8 billion, because I'm good at maths, 7 plus 1 is 8. Where's that coming from then? Where is that coming from? Because I thought we didn't have any money for pensioners or veterans or anybody, but we've mysteriously found 8 billion. I just, honestly, and the more I go into this, right, also, this is a story from nowhere that Mike did on Breakfast that has to be covered. Do you remember that Jaguar advert? You know, Jaguar. Do you know what Sam, do you know what the Jaguar, the silver Jaguar sort of thing on the bonnet was called? It's called a growler. No, it's genuinely called a growler. And you know, like the Jaguar in the old days, it was a sort of, I'm going to say the wrong, it was a man's car, the growler was on the bonnet. If you've just tuned in, it is called a growler. And they did this woke advert. Did you see it, where everybody was dressed in pink and there wasn't a bleeding car in sight? And their sales went through the floor. Today, Jaguar Land Rover has axed up to 500 jobs just weeks after receiving backlash over the rebrand. So they've advertised in this woke world. They don't even mention that they're from Jaguar. They're surrounded by actors and actresses in pink leotards. Their sales have gone through the roof and 500 people lost their jobs. So 344 499 1000. So much to talk about, and we'll start today slightly differently, but delighted to have him. Former Labour MP, a reformite now, a man who has risen his head above the parapet and seen sense. Simon Danczuk, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive.
It's pleased to be with you, Jeremy, and happy birthday to Jodie as well. That's important.
See, Simon said it. Good for you, Si. See, we're gentlemen. Ryan's a bit hacked off. It's not about him today, but there you go, stuff him. Si, I want to start with, and I know I made a joke about it, but I think it's frightening. Labour could bolster its support by as much as 500,000 votes at the next general election by confirming plans to elect 16 and 17-year-olds vote. Sir Keir Starmer today unveiled plans to modernise our democracy by widening the franchise to bring national elections in line with those held in Scotland and Wales. But the move, a manifesto pledge, yes, has been criticised as a cynical ploy since a large proportion of young voters support Labour or are too thick to know the difference. Sorry, that's just me adding that. On the other side, could this not go against Starmer? Because Reform, your party, is very, very relevant and very active on social media, which in fact is massively important amongst the younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot about Labour trying to gain votes. It will add about 1.5 million people to the electoral voting list at the next general election. But opinion polling shows that 30% of that group, 16, 17-year-olds, would probably vote for Labour, but over 20%, or 20% just about, would vote Reform. 10% would vote for the Conservatives. So I think Starmer has to be careful what he wishes for here. There's no doubt about it. If you want to be if you're a young person, and I have a 15 and 17-year-old sons, and they're to the right in politics, there's no doubt about that. And that's without my influence, I have to say.
I've got a 16-year-old son who thinks that Nigel Farage walks on water. Genuinely, and that's nothing to do with me. He thinks he walks on water. He thinks because his granddad would tell him about what Britain was important in the past and all that, and he hates all the stuff. And he's told me, I'm voting for Nigel Farage, whatever you tell me, Dad. Well, I'm not going to tell him. But here's the thing, this is interesting. Let me throw this to you from Graham Pack, from Bushy. The 16-year-olds, this is the irony, we make a bit of fun of it today, won't be able to drive themselves to the polling station because they need to be 17. They might want to celebrate voting for the first time with a cigarette, but they can't buy a pack and they can't buy a drink. They might want to have a bet on the outcome of the election, but they'll have to wait until they're 18 before going to a betting shop. They can vote in an MP, but will not be allowed to be an MP, as you have to be 18. This is nothing to do with change, says Graham in Bushy. This is Starmer raising the white flag already and panicking 1 year in. Thoughts on that? Because I agree with that.
Well, it makes some really good points there, and I think it's an argument for reducing the age on a whole range of issues, some of which he's touched upon. I have to say that I've come across 40 and 50-year-olds who I'm not sure should have the vote in terms of their approach to politics and how they view politics. And I've met some very intelligent 16, 17-year-olds who are quite capable of reaching a smart conclusion on who they should vote for. But I don't think there's any doubt about it. This is practically gerrymandering. And there hasn't been such a significant change. You will remember it well. In 1969, they reduced the age to 18, and this is a change of that significance. So it's very rare to make these changes to the electoral system.
I don't know the answer to this. You will. Paul says, Jez, if you're going to vote, surely they should have their child allowance taken away. What age do you get child allowance to? Is it 18?
Oh, I think it is. You might even get it longer if you go into higher education. That's a good question that I've never heard asked before, actually. That's a really interesting
You're going to allow kids to vote who are getting money to their parents from the state because they're still classed as children. That's really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are lots of questions about this. I don't know how easy it will be to get through, but as you say, it was in the manifesto, so they stood on this at the general election. That makes it easier to get through Parliament. So you would assume that they will be successful.
Well, it's actually quite shocking because it's the only thing from the manifesto, and it's the only thing that he's actually brought up, and because everything else seems to... We've got voice notes coming out of our ears. Simon, stay there. Jack, on the voting age, go.
Happy birthday, Jodie. Good afternoon, JK. Yeah, so this situation with the voting age, I mean, you can't even buy certain games until you're 18, i.e. horror. But what a horror we're living in, and what a horror it will be in 4 years' time if they get in again. Oh, this can't be possible.
Is that an admirer of Jodie? Slightly weird, but Simon, that makes the point. And I think the thing I think about so much to do with politics right now, and I find myself saying it almost every day, and I'll say it again today to you. I think that politicians have to be really careful from whatever party. I don't think gimmicks. I don't even think giveaways. I don't think flannel. I don't think anything like that's working and will continue to work. I think this Afghan thing, which we'll talk to you about in a sec, is another example of how the British people really do feel that they're not being told the truth. They're being governed by people who have little or no respect for their wishes, their desires and their views. And I think that one of the reasons that Nigel is at this moment flying high, and it might not be that he's the next Prime Minister. As he stands today, I would say that he seems to have the political antennae to appeal to people, but so many of them are so distant, so removed from reality that, you know, the Labour Party was supposed to be a working man's and women's party. It's not at all. I don't hear that. And so I understand the younger generation important, but there is a huge number of people in this country who are massively dissatisfied with politicians, full stop. And somebody has got to change that, genuinely.
Yeah, politics is more different than it's ever been before. There's no doubt about that. This isn't even anything near like it was even in the early 2000s under Tony Blair. People are exceptionally sceptical.
Yeah.
The old views of politics just do not work nowadays. And you take young people, I think they will surge in voting for Nigel. And I'm at the point, my 15, 17-year-old, they complain that many of their teachers are very left-wing, trying to persuade the students to vote for a left-wing party. And if you're a young person and want to rebel, which many young people do, you go in the opposite direction. I think they're actually being pushed to vote.
Well, you know, as a father of many, and I'm so glad you said that, because I've heard this again and again and again. I've heard it from my daughter about university. A lecturer stood up and said, basically, the British Army are responsible for every world war there's ever been. Are you joking, mate? I wanted to go to Edinburgh and saw. I'm sorry, I can't have that. And I've heard stories from my kids. I mean, this is interesting. Debbie says, are they going to start giving Labour politics lessons in schools to try and convince them to vote Labour? I think it's really frightening what's going on in schools. I genuinely mean that. Another one. Did you see the story, by the way, very quickly, on Jaguar cars? Have you heard that story today? You heard what I said?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm a typical sort of person that might buy a Jaguar car, and that woke branding over this pink Grand Tourer concept car, I mean, has absolutely killed the business, hasn't it?
500 people have lost their jobs, and they're 97% down. We've got voice notes on that as well. Oh, he's taking issue with me. Richard on Jaguar cars, go.
Jeremy, once again, when it comes to cars, has got it completely wrong. The Jaguar on the bonnet of the car was called a Leaper, and the growler is a reference to the badge that sat on the radiator grille. So if he can put that right, I'd be, as a Jaguar owner, grateful. Thanks.
So the growler's not on the bonnet. I've never known a growler. So the growler's on the. Where's the growler, Ryan? Where's the growler? Ryan, where's the?
That's the badge, isn't it? That's on the grill. I can see what he's saying, and we all remember. We're old enough to remember the Sweeney, aren't we? When they used to fight over the top of the Jaguar cars, they used to drive them around London. The police series.
I'd like to point out to Richard that, and you're very happy to take issue with me, it was just a vain attempt to get the word growler in 5 times on national radio. Right, Simon, let's talk about the main news story of the week, because we've talked about 16 and 17-year-olds. I mean, we started this on Tuesday, and this just won't go away. This Afghan blunder. There are so many levels that you can attack all sides on, and I thought it was very interesting yesterday that already they're all starting to blame each other. The reality, though, is that 23,000 Afghans have been brought into this country under the cloak of darkness on unmarked planes. We don't know where they are. They're arriving in our towns and living in perhaps social housing, hotels. I've got no idea. They're being financed by a country that apparently feels that they're all at threat. Now, I'm not going to take aim at all of that, because there are people who helped us. There were 1,200 special forces. There were translators. I struggle to believe that there were 23,900. That's what we're being told. You add their families. Bob Seeley, the ex-Tory MP, said this could be over 100,000 in the end. And you position yourself as, and I'm not blaming Starmer, but he fought it in November when it went to court. I'm blaming whoever, it doesn't matter. Fact of the matter is, again, the British people in your old constituency all over this country are going, hold on a minute. We've got more people than we know, struggling services. We're having more come in. We don't know, they haven't been vetted. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing. They don't know what threat they are. And all the leftists go, oh, you can't say that, these poor people. I really, really think that the British people, I keep saying it every day, I'm not talking about an uprising, but people have had enough sight because they're at the back of the queue daily, man.
Yeah, this is a massive scandal, the Afghan scandal. That's what it will become known as, and quite rightly. It's very scary. And just look how they're already trying to manage the media and the public outcry from it. They've deliberately released a story at the end of the parliamentary term, which is this week. No politician even raised it in Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. And that's because the Conservatives were in power when the whole scandal erupted and they dealt with it. They created the situation. And then Labour probably don't mind being in the situation and letting in 40, 50, 60,000 Afghanis anyway, because that's their open borders policy. So they're happy with it. So we haven't even got politicians in Parliament, with the exception of Reform, who were trying to stand up and speak on it, but didn't get called at PMQs on Wednesday. We've hardly anybody wanting to raise it in Parliament. And that will cause real concern for the public. Credit to the Times newspaper, they did a lot in pushing to get the the legal thing that super injunction, exactly, being overturned. They did a great job on that, and that's
fair play to any journalist from any paper. But then you go further, you have the people in this country who are going, hold on a minute, sorry, but yet again, we can't get Jack, and seemingly if you come here, you get everything. And that's countered by the argument that people who go, oh, but these people all fought for us. I don't think they did. But it's the security as well. Our streets are running amok. Mike Graham said something yesterday, which it got a lot of traction. A lot of people, will go, oh, my God, how can he say that? A lot of the areas in the last 2 years in this country where there has been tension and not rioting, but problems, it seems, could be down to Afghanistani people coming to this country that we know nothing about. That is not a racist comment. It is a factual, bleeding comment. And I just... The fact that this was hidden for 2 years makes me, as a voter, go, what else don't I know about what's going on in this country? Seriously. And that's where, when I say to you every day, I genuinely think that the trust between the people and the political system is creaking at best.
I completely agree with you. I think people are really sceptical. And we made the point earlier that this isn't like the early 2000s where the media can be managed by, the Prime Minister's press officer, as it used to be. People get their media from a whole range of different places nowadays, and they are furious with the grooming gangs issue. That's a scandal in its own right.
The post office scandal.
Post office scandal. This on top of it. People are absolutely furious with the political class of all the mainstream parties. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're just not happy with politicians. And this is just one thing on top of another. And I think, you touched upon the issue of unrest. I think we will see more unrest as time goes on.
Ministers admitted, didn't they? Ministers admitted. I think I need to make this point, that the Afghan leak was hidden from the majority of MPs and peers. I think that point's a relevant point to make, peeps. But certainly certain ministers knew about it. Starmer was told it. And he doesn't get away with it scot-free, because in November, those very same journalists went to the High Court to get it overturned, and the government fought and said, no, no, no. This was a time bomb. I've heard nothing about whether the bloke who's so incompetent he sends an email to 20,000 names to anybody and everybody. I don't know why apparently nothing's been taken. I also take complete exception with the government that says we're really frightened for these people, because the Taliban admitted that same night that they've had those names for 2 years. So without being accused of being outrageous, none of these people have been killed yet. So if you are, as a government, so prepared, understandably to a point, to bend over backwards, why are you allowing veterans who... I mean, you weren't here yesterday. I'm in my local town on Saturday, Si. He's done 14 years, this guy. He's on the street begging for food. 14 years with the armed forces, and he says to me, where I stayed in the hostel's full of migrants, Jez. Can I have the meal deal? I'd like the Snickers. I thought that was quite funny. Of course I bought him the meal deal. But the truth is, why is somebody who's given his time for my country on the street? I don't understand that. Is that racist?
No, it isn't racist, and the public don't understand it. It's suggested that some military were moved out of their military accommodation so that it could be used for some of the Afghanis that were brought into this country, and this is under a Conservative government.
Yeah.
You'd expect that to be the last thing that they would do, and then they covered it up with the super injunction. And yet Sir Bob Wallace, who was the Defence Secretary and asked for the super injunction, says it wasn't a cover-up. Well, what was it if it's not a cover-up? It really is appalling, and it's not going to end. The Sun today are saying that some of the Afghanis are going to claim up to
£1 billion, with those left-wing bleeding lawyers who are out having fun. Completely. Si, I could talk to you forever. I really appreciate it. You're always welcome on the show. Former Labourer. Are you going to stand for reform again, Si, next time?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't been asked to yet, but you never know.
Good luck, man. You're a good man. Simon Danczuk, former Labour MP, reform voter now and official. On Talk Drive 423, we're live across the UK on the day, ladies and gentlemen, where we can confirm that if you're 12 now, you'll be able to pick the next Prime Minister. You'll be 16 years of age. You won't be able to drive a car, buy a cigarette, buy a drink, phone a radio station without asking your parents' permission, but you'll be able to decide who the next bloody Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
25, Jack Elsom, Chief Political Editor of The Sun, here. Well, it's the political... It's God, basically. He's here in just a tick. Thank you for your text messages on the day that the government has announced that they would like 16 and 17-year-olds to be given the vote. I never voted Labour, but Simon was the best MP I had in 30 years. He speaks sense, says David in Rochdale. Bill says, do you think teenagers, if they vote, will vote for Corbyn rather than Starmer? Great show. Happy birthday, Jodie. See you later. Pardon? Margaret says, the government... No, that's... What? It's not Margaret. John. Why did I say Margaret? The government classes a child migrant as under 18, but an adult voter is over 16. Go figure. Our politicians are clueless, directionless and stupid. Margaret says, please wish Jodie a happy birthday. Jodie shares a birthday with the Queen... Margaret and also Lisa in Birmingham. That's interesting. And also Angela Merkel, who's I don't know what she's doing today. What do you think? She's having a shave, probably. Hello to Karen. That's a joke. Jez, having worked with 16-year-olds for over 20 years, I wouldn't give him the bleeding vote. I wouldn't have given it to my son, who was a grade A student and now works in the city. At 16, he was more interested in his Super Nintendo than politics. I remember being 16. I wasn't interested in games. I was interested in girls. Anna, happy birthday, Jodie. Mick Ford, you get child allowance for 16-year-olds, but if they stay in education, it's 20, confirming what we asked earlier. John's in Mason. Jez, why is he doing this now? Is he planning on having an election soon? Fingers crossed. JK, add to the list. 16 and 17-year-olds can't stand for election. Happy birthday, Jodie. Today would have been my dad's 102nd birthday. What's the date today? Is it the 17th? Oh, goodness me, Anthony Notchwell. My old man would have been... tomorrow's his birthday, the old git. Bless God, rest his heart. He'd be looking down now going, God damn, I need more than a snifter now. Rachel, afternoon, Jez. Please wish happy birthday, Jodie. No offence, but where's Peter? Rehab and the Dole office. 0344, just a joke. 499 1000, JK on Drive for Thursday. A very good afternoon to the political editor of the Sun newspaper, the amazingly talented Jack Elsom. Hello.
Good afternoon, Jeremy.
I'm going to try very hard. I'll let you pick. I only want to talk about two things with you. Wink, wink. Do you want to talk about the Afghan scandal, or do you want to talk about desperate Starmer now trying to get kids who get child allowance and can't buy a beer or drive a car to vote for him because they're 12 at the moment? You start where you want, legend.
Oh, clearly both of them massive stories. The Afghan scandal on the front page of the Sun today. But I mean, what is really gripping, I think, the nation at the moment is Keir Starmer's pretty shameless ruse to hand 1.5 million 16 and 17-year-olds to vote at the next election. And what you are hearing from the Labour government is an attempt to justify this as expanding the democratic exercise. But actually, most people will see it for what it is, which is basically a ploy for Labour to try and boost their chances at the next election with what is a piece of pretty naked political gerrymandering. And they said they were going to do this in the manifesto. It then went quite quiet. Now, people are thinking, why are you doing it a year into your government when things are going not too swimmingly? And I think that the public are dead opposed to it. In fact, Snap polling just come out by YouGov has shown that less than a third of people support this. About 2/3 are against it. And that is because there are many things which 16-year-olds cannot currently do. I bet you don't know.
I bet you don't know my list. Did you know? You'll love this, Jay.
I've got a list. I've been looking at my own list.
You can't buy spray paint. You can't get a tattoo. You can't buy a lottery ticket. You can't sit on a jury. You can't become an MP, but you can vote for the bleeding Prime Minister. You can't get a mortgage. You can't buy fireworks. And the best one of all is you can't phone a radio station without asking your mum or dad. Unbelievable. What the hell, man? And the people who are going to get the vote right now, people, are 12-year-old kids. I'm sitting on the train. I saw some kids with their mother. They're off to Billie Eilish concert at O2. They're 12-year-old girls. They're going to decide who's the next Prime Minister. That, to me, it's almost like you just said, that's raising a white flag 12 months in going, I'm really worried about reform. I'm worried that I'm losing my base, which was supposed to be working-class people who have abandoned Labour, as we know. The Tories are seemingly not in the game. But it's extraordinary, extraordinary.
Yeah, many of these people wouldn't have sat a single GCSE before they're allowed to vote. You can't get hypnotised as well. I think that's on my list of things.
Look into my eyes, and around the eyes, into my eyes.
But also, there is a point here which it could spectacularly backfire on Keir Starmer. While I think at the moment they would take the lion's share of 16 and 17-year-olds, I think they're projected to be polling around a third, so they take about 30%, more than any other party. Reformer in second. Clearly, lots of young teenagers, especially teenage boys, are flocking to Nigel Farage's banner. He's very good on social media, very savvy, so that could only increase as the years go on. But also, while now lots of radical lefty youngsters tend to maybe vote Labour, that could all change. More of them are flirting with the Greens. Some of them might peel off to Jeremy Corbyn's independence. And so there is no certainty that actually this could pay off for Keir Starmer, and it could spectacularly backfire. But at the moment, I think it is pretty clear in the minds of most people that this is an attempt to to win over the population. And if, let's say, for example, in a hypothetical world, the Tories were the main popular party of 16 and 17-year-olds, do you think Keir Starmer would be doing this? Of course he wouldn't.
I think you're right. I also want to talk to you briefly about the education, because there is real concern, is there not? I mean, I was talking about my daughters at university, there's education concerns. Listen to this from a teacher who I won't name. I don't agree with voting at 16, Jez. By the way, I'm a teacher, and I would love to join reform, but I'm telling you absolutely that if I did, I would most likely be forced out of my job if it ever became public. How bad's that, man? I mean, what are they teaching our kids? Are they going to bring Labour policies into schools? I think it's frightening. I mean, I've got Henry, the 16-year-old, you know, he thinks Nigel Farage walks on water, and that's not because of me. He's made his own mind up. It could backfire, but to me, I mean, you know, we talked for years in this country about the over-sexualisation of teenage girls. Kids voting at 16, no, too young, mate. Child maintenance till 20 if you're in education, take it or not. It's unbelievable. Can I talk about the other main news story of the week? Fantastic front cover this morning, Jack, in The Sun. They've covered this story all week. I mean, we got straight into it on Tuesday. We talked about the super injunction. Ryan was on, and we talked about, you know, how much this is going to cost. We talked about the real fear of 23,000 plus their families, possibly upwards of 100,000, coming into this country in the dark in unmarked planes and arriving in these towns and taking up housing, etc., etc. Now, just to put the boot in, all those left-wing ambulance-chasing lawyers are going to have another payday because the Afghans are going to sue the government for a total of £1 billion for losing their details. Where does all this money come from, Jack?
Yeah, and the only loser are the British people. It's clearly a massive cock-up in terms of the data breach and the subsequent fallout of it, the super injunction and the rest of it.
Were you aware of it? Were you, as a journalist, were you aware of it for a while?
Many journalists were aware of it, yes, but obviously incredible reporting restrictions meant that nothing could be said at all for a long, long time until this week, despite the best efforts of many politicians and the military. Clearly, there is going to be a lot of anger at the fact that, yes, despite whether you think or not these Afghans should have been brought here, the ones that have been brought here, the fact that they are, some of them planning on launching compensation claims, suing the government, and the taxpayers are on the hook yet again for £1 billion more, people would find pretty unconscionable. And I think a lot of people will be angry about it. And it just goes to show again how we seem to just have a limitless supply of money when it comes to things which probably aren't in the British interest. And that's what is really going to stick in the craw a lot of these people. Leave aside the absolute historic, probably one of the biggest scandals of the modern age, where it came to this data leak, it came to the subsequent cover-up. That is one thing in itself. But the fact now that taxpayers, yet again, are going to be the ones footing the bill for this, many of them, you know, my readers, your listeners, incredibly squeezed, feeling a pinch, and they see these billions of pounds for this and billions of pounds for that, yet, you know, their local transport doesn't work and they can't get on the housing ladder. It is just an incredible, almost like tale of two worlds going out there. They see this enormous amount of money. Yeah, it's good money after bad being spent by the government, and that the actual priorities they want things being spent on doesn't seem to come. And, I think that's I will blow smoke up the backside of your newspaper and this station for a minute if I can, because that to me is the point. That we've always been a country that's helped, but with skin. I say it every day. That's hard enough, right? But what sticks in the craw, as you quite rightly say, is that actually we seemingly have governments that can put their hands into an imaginary pot and find £8 billion to sort some Afghans out. And I don't believe all of them helped Britain. I'm just going to stick my neck on the line. I'm sure some did, right? But none of them have been vetted. And then at the same time, you're saying to veterans, you're on the streets, and waspy women, you're getting bugger all, and farmers, we're going to take your land because we want to build wind farms, and we're going to say to pensioners, you're going to be cold. And people, I'm not talking about uprising, people are going, I live my life properly, and I really am a second-class citizen in the United Kingdom. And that is for me right now where, you know I was watching Prime Minister's Question Time. They wouldn't let Reform speak. I watched Nigel being shouted down last week. I'm not advocating Nigel Farage to everybody else. That's their business to decide. But the man seems to have the political nous to be talking, however unpopular it is, about the things that your average British person, who's done right by their lives forever, is interested in. And I can't even tell you the hundreds of people who say to me, Jack, why do I bother living my life correctly? Because I feel like I'm nothing now. Nothing. Yeah, and take something like the winter fuel allowance. I mean, the cost of means testing that in the first place was about £1.5 billion in savings by the Treasury, right? And that was obviously sparked incredible backlash. People thought that it was morally wrong. People thought it wouldn't even save that much money. And then you get something like £1 billion again here in terms of compensation. And without even blinking, it just sort of is assumed that we're going to pay it. I think that's where people are really getting angry in this country at the moment. They just feel that they're being taken for a ride. Money gets spent on things which they don't want, whereas actually they're getting fleeced every single day where it comes to
it's priorities, isn't it? And I think a lot of British people, which is where I think we tap into this. A lot of British people feel that British people are not the government's priority, and you've got a leader who's obsessed with human rights and appearing. I mean, the other thing very quickly. I mean, I know it turns out we might be forced to pay the EU some money because Starmer wants a reset. I'm sorry, I thought we voted to leave. It's ridiculous. This money seems to come from everywhere, and yet people in this country are skinned. I think it's appalling, mate. We can't give up the fight, can we?
No, and every single week we seem to get some sort of government stat showing just how much we're spending on this. I mean, like we talked about earlier in the week, 1.3 million migrants claiming benefits in this country. Half of them are out of work. And it just seems that it's just a slow pile up. These things don't happen in isolation. It seems every single day we get a slap after slap in the face to British people at the hands of the government. And it hasn't just been this Labour government. I think, to be fair, it's been happening under the Tories for many years. And, they were the ones that, hiked the tax burden to its record high, obviously now going up under this Labour government as well, and likely to go up even further in the autumn. People are feeling the squeeze. And I think that we are stuck in this doom loop, and we have been for a while now, of a high spend, high tax, low growth economy. And at the moment, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like in the autumn, again, although it's slightly going off topic, but it's all related. There is a big black hole in the finances, and growth, despite all of the promises before the election, is not coming to save Rachel Reeves, because she has strangled the life out of business and the economy. Despite all of her warm words this week about trying to get people to take more risks and bet on growth and financial services, at the moment that is not coming because, funnily enough, £25 billion of national insurance hikes on businesses are not going to spur growth. What they're going to do is lead to many job losses, and the unemployment figures today are dire and stark. And it just goes to show that the economy is really, at the moment, not in a very good place.
And I'll tell you something, right? And you can quote me on this, not that you ever would, because I'm old enough to remember. I'll tell you what will happen. In less than a year, the IMF will have to bail this country out because it will be skint. Interest rates will go through the bleeding roof. The unions won't get the pay rises and will go on strike. And I've said it for the last year. We will be right back to 1979 because, like it or lump it, the only policy a Labour government ever has is to tax the rich and give money that it hasn't got. And it happens on a daily basis. Mate, we got to keep the fight. We so appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. We appreciate you coming on. The political editor of The Sun, Jack Elsom. Thank you, my friend. 20 minutes to 5 if you want to be on. So much to talk about. 16 and 17-year-olds can vote. As Jack says, they can't even go to an off licence and buy a Red Bull, but they can decide who the next Prime Minister is. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. I'm off for a wee. I'm back in 3. Ta.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 90 minutes to 5 in a minute. The legend that is Alex Phillips. First up, Joe's in Bournemouth. Joe, you're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes. What you got, kidder?
Hello, Jezzy. Yeah, I was just calling in really because I think with this 16 and 17-year-olds getting the vote, there's one thing that's been missed on this, and it's the fact that all they do is sit on TikTok all day. So all we're really doing is allowing China to influence our kids into where they want them to vote.
It's very interesting. They say that social media is where the young kids are looking. Have you got kids?
Yep.
Teenagers?
Yes. Yeah, both. Well, no, one is, one isn't.
What do you make? When you look at your kids tonight, do you think, Christ, you're going to decide who the next Prime Minister is? What do you make of that?
It's just laughable, isn't it, to be honest? They're not interested in that sort of thing, and the knowledge that they gain, all they're looking at is just, even if they're looking at half-decent stuff online now, it's all nonsense. So,
I think it could backfire on Starmer. I genuinely do. I know Reform is very big on social media. Joe in Bournemouth, we appreciate your call. Samantha in Gloucester says, great show. Let's hope this backfires and all these youngsters think Starmer is still the same Lego head and vote Reform. On a serious note, it's ridiculous. Wouldn't surprise me if the next general election the vote is rigged in favour of Labour. Oh, God, we're going down Trump territory. Michael Wilkinson, good afternoon. I think Labour have miscalculated the voting age shift. They are daft enough to think that the middle-class twits they see at Glastonbury are representing the nation's youth. They don't. They dig their own grave, methinks. We wish. Jane, many of these new voters will never forget Frozen Granny last year, and they'll never vote for Starmer. I agree with that. And Al from Cambridge, Jez, all these stories just now confirm what Liz Truss said, and that we are actually being run by the civil service. Starmer and co and the Tories are not in charge at all. Very interesting. 0344 499 1000. Haven't had her on for ages because she's permanently running around like a headless chicken. Fellow talk presenter and legend somewhere. I'm not telling you where she is because if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. Alex Phillips, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Jezza.
Look at you and your country pie. Are they all right?
You'd be amazed. About 5 minutes ago, I looked like Wurzel Gummidge. I was camping in the New Forest last night, and my hair is like Rick Parfitt on a bad day.
Sorry, you were camping.
Put on some lippy and a jacket, so I'm sort of feasible for this.
Sorry, you were camping near my house last night. Is that on your own?
On your front drive with a long lens camera, yeah.
Right, well, if you told me, I'd have been leaning out the bedroom window with a long way. Hey, by the way, have you said happy birthday to Jodie? It's her birthday today, love.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jodes.
Yeah, shares it with the Queen. Mate, you are probably more direct than me. 16 and 17-year-olds who, just for your information, can't buy fireworks, can't buy spray paint, can't use a sunbed or get a tattoo, can't buy a lottery ticket, become an MP, get a mortgage, and mostly funniest of all, can't phone a bleeding radio station without asking mummy and daddy, are going to be allowed, those who are 12 right now, to decide the next government in the United Kingdom. Thoughts, AP?
Well, it's disgusting and it's awful. And, YouGov polling that's just come out shows that 2/3 of the country completely disagree with this. But the Labour Party don't care about that. They just want to make sure they stay in power. And what I hope, actually, is that when high school kids in countries like the Netherlands were asked who they would vote for, they all said Geert Wilders and the Populist Party. So I hope our lot coming up have the, sense of mind to listen to their school teachers and think they're overpaid idiots and morons, and actually start unpicking some of the damage and the brainwashing they're subjected to. Because my worry is this, Jezza, okay? The 12-year-olds right now are going to have 4 years of being told the world's on fire, climate change is the most important thing, Ed Miliband's going to be the pin-up in their magazines. So when it comes to the ballot box in 2029 and Reform is saying net zero is an act of national suicide, they're going to think that that's akin to voting in the devil. So if we're going to do this and 16-year-olds are going to be given the vote next time around, what I want is for every school kid under the age of 16 to have to go for a school trip to Brent so they get a good idea of what the country's going to look like if Labour stay in power for another 4 years. I think they should all have to wear VR headsets where they can see what it's like hanging out in Syria or Afghanistan so they understand the sort of ways that the Labour Party might be culturally vandalising our country. They should all have to do a little bit of military service as well so they can get the common sense and patriotism of our armed forces, who would never allow our kids to be brainwashed into this stupid come by our mentality of ridiculous suicidal empathy, but it is gerrymandering, and I don't think this is where they'll stop. When you look at what they've also done in the mayoral elections, oh no, Reform got 2 mayors, therefore we're going to have to change it to preferential candidate.
But don't you think, and listen, mate, I completely know I agree with you, and I've got teenage kids, and they come, whether they're at university or school, and they tell me some frightening things, and I think our education system is rotten to the core. I think most of the teachers in a lot of schools have a very, very warped agenda, and that's not how I want it. But I do think, right, and I've said it for days, and I'm not even placatory when I say this. I think the British people have A, and one, had enough, and B, and two, have realised that their voice is actually really, really relevant. And I think this could backfire. To me, right, if I'm sitting in another political party right now, I'm thinking this is Starmer raising the white flag 12 months in. This is desperate. This is a reaction to polls that show that the Tories are irrelevant, that Labour is not the party of the working man and woman. North of Islington, nobody really gives a toss or understands who he is, and Reform are on the march. And this isn't about pro or anti any political party. What it's about is the British people going, hold on a second, right? We are not mugs anymore. We've done the whole expenses thing. I mean, this EU reset this afternoon, we discover, is going to cost this country money. I've just been rounding on somebody about where's all the bloody money coming from? We're paying $1 billion in compensation to Afghans, $7 billion for 23,000 people. We don't know who the hell they are in this country, and yet we froze grannies. I mean, it really does my head in this that I keep bringing it up. But, when I see servicemen and women on the streets and I think about what's happening to migrants, it just infuriates me. If I'm a farmer or a waspy woman, if I'm a pensioner or a veteran, I'm pulling my hair out going, I am bloody irrelevant in my own country. That's what the British people think. I don't care what anybody tells me. That is what people care about.
That is what the British people think. Adults who go out every day and toil for a living, who understand how the world's work. But sadly, and you said it yourself, Jezza, 12-year-olds are not being taught that. They're not exposed to that. And, when it comes around to 2029, who's going to vote? Is it going to be the kids, the working class kids whose dads are working on the production line, have lost their jobs? Is it going to be them? No. It's going to be the middle class kids with their Waitrose mummies, with their sort of lovely school teachers saying, we've got to save the planet. Isn't it so terrible? The world's on fire.
Well, my Henry's voting Reform. He thinks the Labour Party are a disgrace. So that's one, and that's not
one,
even.
At least. But no, the thing is as well, you were absolutely right that saying that the Labour Party have looked at the polling and gone to the break glass for votes for 16 option because they think they're absolutely done for. So why do you not think that they're going to do this again? If they look at the polling and think even using the 16-year-olds votes, we're still not going to get in. They're going to introduce something like PR because that's in the manifesto as well. Then they're going to form super coalitions with Plaid and the SNP and the Greens and the Lib Dems to keep Reform out, just like they did in France, just like they do in other Western countries. Let's all come up with a voting block to prevent something else. If they're doing this vote for 16s, they're changing the way the mayoral elections vote. They've already done it to local elections and made sure that councils who are going to lose to Reform didn't have to have a vote at all. True. This gerrymandering is on steroids. They're going to do it again. If this move doesn't work, they'll come up with something else because they are absolutely rotten to the core. They don't care about democracy. They just want to keep themselves in power, even if it means we're careering towards becoming
I might be naive, Phillips, but I'm not having that. Are you in a hurry, or can you give me another 5 minutes after the break?
Yeah, go on then.
See, she's desperate to be with me. That's why she's at the end of my drive all night. Back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About the woman that is back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock and is utterly, awesomely frightening because she stayed at the end of my drive all night with a long-lens camera or even lens. Alex Phillips joins me from a secret location where she's got a jacket on but nothing underneath. Hello.
Hello, God, it does look like that, doesn't it? There is a striped T-shirt.
It literally looks like you've got a jacket. Oh, all right, there we go. Could be selling onions. Right, listen, we've talked about the 16 and 17-year-olds. I've been really outspoken about this Afghan blunder. I mean, we can look at this in all sorts of levels. I know about the compensation front of the Sun today. I know about the woman who should have been sacked, the civil servant. I know about the MOD lying. I know about how prime ministers and MPs and cabinet ministers are blaming each other. Can we talk about the fact that, again, without any vetting, because I don't buy for 1 second that all 23,900 work for the British Army. I'm sure there were special forces and so there were translators, but if you had their families, it could be 100,000, Bob Seeley said. Yet again, we've allowed maybe up to 100,000 people unvetted into our country. Mike Graham said something yesterday, got a bit of traction, bit of criticism. I completely stand with him on this. It's interesting this has been happening for 2 years, and it's interesting about the unrest in several towns across the United Kingdom. And one wonders if the lack of transparency from this government actually means that they hide a lot more from us. But from my point of view, it's again an example where the British people are going to say, you're laying out the carpet again to the tune of 8 billion, and we're all bloody struggling.
Yeah, it's not just financial, though. Financial has a lot to do with it, Jeremy.
Security,
numbers do add up, and we're not exactly in rude health when it comes to our economics. But worse than that, in my opinion, because, if you crash an economy, there is still a hope in the future you can undo it, that you can actually put some policies in place to reinvigorate it, to get money back in the coffers, to make business work again. But if you change the shape of your country's demographic, it's irreversible, okay? Yeah. And I often use the phrase cultural vandalism. And we have to have an open and honest conversation when we're talking about who comes to this country and the culture that they're coming from. Because it's pretty clear in Afghanistan, they might be lovely people, every single one of the 29,000 of them, perhaps, but they probably don't share our values, particularly when it comes to women's rights, particularly when it comes to the age you should marry, how a woman should dress. Onwards I can go, because I make this argument all the time. And once you've actually changed the population to an extent where you've suddenly got an underbelly in this country who have very competing values, but are sizable enough in number to push for them, it's almost irretractable. And so at the same time they're giving 16-year-olds the vote, these people are going to vote, in 4 years' time, and then by the time they get to 40 and are standing in a dumpster fire of a country with a ruined economy and a minority on the street where they live, they're going to hate themselves for having voted Labour. And this is the honest conversation we need to have. It's a conversation we're still not allowed to have. It's a conversation that soon enough is going to be outlawed.
But you say that, and I can talk about the Sun, and I can talk about Talk, and I can talk about the people that I know, and I don't meet anybody, right? Whatever anybody thinks about me or you, every single person I meet on the street, in any social situation, 99% of them go, Jez, you got to keep doing that. What the hell's happened to this country? This isn't right. And 5 years ago, you couldn't mention the word immigration. You'd be called a racist. It is not wrong to say, OK, we were a country that did everything for everybody. Whether we were apologising for something that we shouldn't have apologised for, we actually destroyed slavery before people start ringing me up. Here's the thing, right? We can't afford that. So when you're laying out the red carpet for people from other countries, for whatever reason, to the detriment of your own people are going to go, hold on a minute. I don't want to say this, but charity does begin at home. You can talk about cultural vandalism. You can absolutely talk about the financial impact. I'm talking about the average Joe north of Islington who goes, I don't break the law. I don't ask for a handout. I pay my bills. I bring my kids up. And my life is frankly shite compared to these people who are having their backsides wiped. And I don't understand it. That's what people are angry about. And it's not going to go away. And thank the Lord that we can on this channel at least have that conversation.
Yeah, but like I said, it is so true. Everything you say is so true. But what alarms me is what, say, someone like Douglas Murray would call the Lebanonization of this country.
Yeah.
The idea that once upon a time, for 2,000 years, you had a monoculture which glued together fairly well, and within a sleight of hand, in about 5 years or a decade, that completely changes. And all of a sudden, Sir Keir Starmer might talk a good game when it comes to we need people to integrate, and then a few minutes later say, oh, I shouldn't have used the word island of strangers, I'm sorry, to The Guardian. But actually, he had a point the first time round. He claims he didn't read that speech. I mean, he's such a useless Prime Minister, he can just read an auto cue like a robot. That's about it. But, he had a point. Whoever wrote that speech had a point, that we cannot become an island of strangers. We're almost there already in certain parts of the country. Being out in rural Wiltshire is an absolute dream, because I suddenly realise this is real Britain. But when we get to a point that, those countries, the capital city and other big cities start breaching their boundaries, I mean, you cannot undo sweeping demographic change. And we're not allowed to think that way. We're not allowed to be worried by this, because that's racist, that's xenophobic, but we are.
Completely agree. Now, if you were here, I would feed you a custard cream.
Oh, nice.
She's on tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. She is a legend. Her name is Alex Phillips. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, AP. We're live across the United Kingdom. I was thinking about doing the next link with a custard cream in mouth. Sean's in Cardiff. Apparently, spies and SAS personnel among 100-plus Brits included an Afghan data leak. I despair. I completely agree. Whatever you want to talk about, 16-year-olds can't get a tattoo, but they can vote in the next general election. You want to talk about the Afghan, £1 billion in compensation, and we're all struggling. 0344 499 1000. The only number you need. It's Talk. We're live across the United Kingdom for Thursday afternoon. You can get your call in. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. But the big news of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is not any of that. It's Jodie's 28th birthday. And if you ring or you call, mention that. News of 5 is next on Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 2 minutes past 5. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Drive for Thursday. JK at the controls. Well, I'm not at the controls at all because I haven't got a clue what's going on. Sam is. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Happy birthday to Jodie. If you ring the show, she's 28 today. She's going out for steak with Cameron. Don't say any more. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Jenny says, Jez, how many teenagers can be organised enough to get to a bloody voting booth? Do you know what? That's actually true. Well, they actually get out of bed, but it is quite frightening. Child maintenance till 20 if you stay in full-time education. And yet you can apparently get the vote under Labour. If they give 16-year-olds the vote, who's this from? Reform will never win and Labour will be in for the next 50 years. Don't be ridiculous. Go and get some therapy. Darren, if we had a referendum to leave the EU, surely it's going against the people's voice, so we should have had a referendum on the reset. Yeah, you would have thought so, Darren, wouldn't you? But hold on a second. This Labour Party don't care. Hello to Rich. Great show. Gentle reminder to the woker artery. If Kamala versus Trump wasn't a lesson, 45% of the National Socialist Party vote in 1937 was under 30, as their kids were fed up with how the country was being run. History and fact before they rewrite the books these days. Dave's in Swindon. Jez, do you not think a lot of 16 to 17-year-olds will be influenced by their parents who to vote for, and that could backfire on the government big time? I'd say this, Dave in Swindon. Right now, the people that the Labour Party are going to give power to vote to, right, are 12, for Christ's sake. And I repeat my list just because it's brilliant. At 16, you can't buy a drink or a cigarette, you can't drive a car, you can't have a bet, you can't buy fireworks or spray paint, you can't use a sunbed or get a tattoo, you can't buy a lottery ticket, you can't go to war, sit on a jury, become an MP, and my favourite, you cannot ring a radio station without asking your mummy and daddy, but you can, apparently, vote for the next Prime Minister very quickly ahead of a very special guest. We're going to Dorset. Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Jeremy. Happy birthday, Jodie.
Oh, God, all of you, go on. Crack on.
So, 2 points. Firstly, why are the Afghans going to be in receipt of £1 billion compensation when equally there was a bit elite, regarding active service personnel who got the square root of NAFOL?
Yep.
Secondly, on the voting age, I've got 3 kids who would now potentially fall into this. My oldest daughter currently is 15. She's a bit switched on. And yes, we actually have discussions in our house about stuff that's happening. Trust her to vote. My boy, who's 13, pushing 14, not a passing house chance as he going anywhere near a voting booth because he'll do something stupid. And my 12-year-old, so they're still too young to actually comprehend everything that's happening around them, especially when you've got leftist lunatics in schools pushing agendas all the time.
Have you noticed that, by the way, in schools with your kids? Have you noticed a leftist agenda being pushed upon them?
When my boy hit a lad that had gone into the girls' toilet, and the milk come running out the toilets crying, flowers partly ripped open, so obviously the lad's chased after him. My boy's got a lamped him one. Guess who got suspended?
Your boy, yeah.
My boy.
Bit like the girl the other day in the Union Jack dress. Listen, Dara, Stephen even endorsed it. Thank you very much indeed. 5past 5, live across the UK. 0344 499 1000. I'm delighted with my next. She's a friend of mine. I got invited to a wedding I couldn't go. One of the few Tories who kept their seats intact, and the former Minister for Common Sense and many other jobs in government, Esther McVey, MP. A very good afternoon. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to be here.
I can't believe it's been that. Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Parliament. I've literally just come out from having done a debate to get a memorial to the heroes of the RAF, the Photographic Reconnaissance Unit, who basically flew over all of the beaches of Normandy, Burma, you name it, took all the photos, got the intelligence so that the army and the military strategy could be put together. They lasted on average, 50% of them died, lasted longest 2 years. Average age of the death of these people was 24, and we're saying now there needs to be a long-standing sort of tribute, a memorial to them.
While you're at it, could you deal with what I dealt with on Saturday in my hometown? Genuinely, it frustrates the hell out of me. A 14-year veteran on the streets begging for food, right? And he tells me down the road 300 migrants are in a hotel and a hostel paid for by the government. Esther, there's so much I want to talk about. Let's ask you first about this Labour plan today, aiming to bolster its support by as much as 500,000 votes by giving the vote to 16 or 17-year-olds. He says it's I'm not going to do the voice because it annoys me. Modernising our democracy. Already a YouGov Snap poll says that 67% of the United Kingdom think this is a political ploy and nothing more. It would be fair to say that Nigel Farage and Reform are well ahead of the Tories in terms of social media and young people. What do you make of this? It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, do you hear my list? You can't buy fireworks, but you can vote. The name's bloody ridiculous, woman, isn't it?
I like the fact you couldn't even call in to speak to you on a radio show. No, the reality is this is electoral desperation. Yeah. And let's be honest about what's happened over the last year. They've only been in government for a year, right? They've lost the pensioners' vote for what they did on the winter fuel. They've lost the working age vote, what they've done to farmers, what they've done to the self-employed, what they've done to people working in hospitality. So they're thinking, where can we get a vote from? Let's go to the people who are fundamentally children still at school. They've got to stay in full-time education until they are 18, and let's try and bribe them in one way or another, because they've devastated the rest of the country and working age and pension age, and they've hemorrhaged the voters from those groups.
What's your view on what so many people who have phoned this show today are saying, that they're worried that in schools there is an increasing feeling that a leftist agenda is being pushed upon kids in all sorts of age groups and levels by, and I was telling the story of my daughter at university, a lecturer stood up and said, actually, the British Army is responsible for every single major world war in the last 200 years. I mean, literally. I think that's frightening. I know you've been in government before. I think the whole thing's frightening. And what I keep talking about on this show, Esther, is, and I genuinely believe this, and I'm not bothered about anybody's politics with this comment, I think the British people have had enough. I think the British people have worked out that their voice can be heard. I think that I'm not talking about stuff on the streets. I'm talking about they're not prepared to take the BS they've been fed for so long. I'm not sure at the end of the last government, nothing against you, I think Rishi Sunak could have offered £1 million to every voter and he'd lost the ear of the British people. That was done. And I think that this gentleman in power right now is an over-promoted lawyer who has no political antenna, and I think he could do anything. I think he's cooked already, and I think that the British people are watching a slow march to what we all know which will happen, which is that the IMF will bail us out, inflation will hit 30%, and the unions will go on strike, because it happened when I was 14 in 1979. It's a disaster.
I think, sadly, what you're saying is true. I question whether this Labour government will actually survive the full term in office. I do think it will be some maybe collapse of the pound, of the currency, something like that. You know, the IMF will have to intervene. Something will happen. I think that will be so drastic because none of the front bench seem to be qualified in the job they're doing. Rachel Reeves isn't the business secretary, isn't the Prime Minister, as you say, is more of a human rights lawyer. And this sense that we can all see and feel that everybody else is treated better than a British citizen. You've just mentioned before that veterans are on the street, can't get a meal. However, if you basically break into this country, if you come here illegally, we will put you in a hotel or a home, pay for your accommodation, give you money, and people are saying, we've had enough. So I do agree with you on that. And I think a national emergency should already have been called about the levels of particularly illegal migration, though I will also say legal was too high. Listen, I was one of those voices within the Conservative Party that some people might, I call it common sense, saying all these levels are too high. We've really got to think of our own country now. But I have to say, so there is an apology there from the Conservative Party, but I have to say Labour has multiplied what went wrong. They have magnified the issues. I do think Rishi took over at a very, very difficult time. You can't forget that 400 billion was spent on lockdown, and I was one of only about 4 MPs who voted against lockdown. Labour and every other party, as well as the Conservatives, but Labour in particular, would have locked down for longer and harder, and I think that is where a lot of the issues seem.
But you do, because
stem
if you do understand, and listen, we're mates, so this isn't anything other than me being honest. You do understand that I know you do. The feeling on the street is, and I'm being completely straight, I don't want to listen to another Tory tell me that because of lockdown and COVID and all of that. The truth of the matter is, Esther, you know this, and you were a dissenting voice. The Tory party had lost the ear of the British public because it did not do what it promised to do. You have to understand that I understand politics. Politicians will say, COVID and lockdown. No. The fact of the matter is, let's take Rwanda, which I wasn't a massive fan of, right? But you bluffed that. They should have brought that in and moved heaven and bloody earth to move people out, because we now live in a world where 10 years ago, you know this, you couldn't mention immigration. You were accused of every single sin. Oh, you racist. No. This Afghan situation, I'm sure there are special forces and I'm sure there are interpreters, but you try telling the British people that the 23,900 and their associated families, which Bob Seeley said the other day, could end up the size of a small town of 150,000 people, have come into our country in the dark, in unmarked planes, into society, into social housing, into hotels, and we don't know. They haven't been vetted. The British people, their response, in my humble opinion, is, so I've done everything right, and these people are better off than I am. And the Tories said I'd be better off, and he said we'd be better off, and actually all of you, this is what a lot of people say to me, all of you don't actually understand or give a damn, because I can't get this and I can't get that, and all I've ever done is pay tax, not break the law, and not ask for a handout. People, I'm not going to use the word they'll want to use, but people are really, really angry. And like it or lump it, right, the only person who's speaking the language right now that the British, whether there's meat on the bone and he's going to be the Prime Minister or he's going to fall flat on his face, right? You go around the country and people say, at least Farage talks about what we want. I'm not asking you to be disrespectful, but your leader, how long's her bloody review going to take? I want some... She didn't even have the courage at Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday to attack or talk about the Afghan stuff, because we know the Tories took out... Did you know about the super injunction, by the way?
No, I didn't.
What was your response to that when it came out?
I don't believe there should ever be a super injunction. I don't believe in that secrecy. I think there is a lot we need to know about the breach in itself. I want to know who actually is being protected and why. Was that a genuine mistake, or actually was it a deliberate breach? I want to know why all those addresses and details were not encrypted, how they managed to go out all at once. So I think there's a lot more questions here that need to be answered. Also, I'd analyse how many of that 100,000 genuinely should be here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they said 18,000. Where does that become 100,000? So I actually think there's a lot that needs to be done. I think it was feeble and weak to seek to try and silence that, when in reality, you know, it was going to come out. Cover-up's the worst thing you can do, and I always think when you cover something up, it usually leads to more problems. So this needs to be unravelled, unpicked, and you need to get to the bottom of how that was leaked in the first place. And like I said, I'd be questioning why all of these people, or how many even, need to come into the country. But you see, none of that has been done. And when you look at how much money could be spent on this, all done in secrecy, Ministry of Defence pretty much...
Yeah, where does all the money come from, by the way? Where does all the money come from the Labour?
A clue. And that goes back to, and I share, as you know, these things, it is about fairness. And when the British public feel they're being done over, we can't have money to pay for winter fuel, but oh my goodness, we've just found 7 billion here. I am with them. And so, as I said, things that have gone wrong, I get that. I don't think you can really brush away £400 billion from lockdown. Things I, as a Brexiteer, would have liked to have seen done. We went into lockdown in March, having only just come out of the EU in the January. So I think there were things multiplied and things went wrong. But look, I'm not here to apologise for everybody. I've always been an outspoken critic, voted against my government more than anybody else, because I am far more, how can we say, robust as a Conservative. I'd say I was a very traditional, more of a Thatcherite Conservative.
I want to ask you something, and you can tell me to get off and never talk to me again. I had Jonathan Gullis on yesterday, and I don't...
Never speak to me again.
Nah, I'd always speak to you, sweetheart. I spoke to Jonathan Gullis yesterday, and it was shocking because I saw almost a broken man, and he said to me, he's clinging hold by his fingertips. He also was an outspoken critic of many things, like you. You must have flirted with, considered the thought of reform in terms of how you just described yourself, because for me, I was very honest, I was brought up at a Tory house, voted Tory all my life, and I voted to reform. And I'll tell you that the one thing that did it was not you lot jumping up and down going, that's a vote for Labour. It was when, I can't even remember who it was, somebody said, they're far right. And I listened to them talk about low taxation, a secure border, strong military, economic fiscal responsibility and all that, and strong police. And I thought, no, that's what my mum and dad brought me up to talk about. And what I was saying to you just then, nothing against Kemi Badenoch. I don't think she's up to scratch. That's my opinion. Other people might not share it. But for me, Farage talks the stuff that I want to hear. Have you flirted with the idea of reform in your head at all?
I'll come clean with you. Look, I was asked to join Reform at the very beginning, as was Phil Davis, who knows my husband, Richard Tice. And I'm not. I am a Conservative through and through. I fought to be a Conservative from Merseyside, where there ain't too many others around, right? So I found my way there through what you've just mentioned: small state, personal responsibilities, no crime, extending opportunities, all those things. So in a way, the Reform Party is a stretcher. It is a part of the Conservative Party. In a way, to me, the Conservative Party lost their way and weren't conservative enough. But I will remain as a Conservative. And I always say you always need to know the who and the how. And whilst there is lots of things that I probably agree with Nigel Farage more than other people maybe in my own party, and he's a friend, so I'm not going to say that, but you've got to do the who and the how. And can you build up that infrastructure and how you do it? So you're quite right, he is raising all the right points. It's how do you deliver that? Now, for me, it's up to the Conservative Party to really show its mettle here. It's to come forward, because...
What if it can't? What if it can't under its current leadership? What if it can't? What if it's a busted flush?
Well, I believe it can, and as I have fought all my life to be a Conservative, I have spent 20, 30 years. I ain't given it up overnight. I want the Conservatives to find a way, because to me the enemy is socialism and Starmer, and I don't want them getting in again. I know they're trying to alter the electoral process and gain votes there, but I don't want them in another loveless leadership. Nobody really voted for them, they snuck in. And I think really, Conservatives and Reform, we don't want them splitting the vote and allowing Labour in, because that's when the public will not forgive us if we have Starmer again having caused so much devastation in only a year.
Would you, you'd never contemplate reform?
Well, no, I'm a Conservative through and through. Genuinely, I am. But look, tomorrow's a new day. I've said to you what I want to happen. I want the Conservative Party to be Conservative or more Conservative. Yes, we've got to come through what has happened. I do believe, even though you said we don't want to hear any more about COVID, lockdown, etc., I actually think that knocked us off course. Remember, I've worked with IDS after the financial crash, and if you think what we did to get people back into work after Labour, we were getting 1,000 more people into work each and every day. We put in processes in place, we got people training, we got them into work, we had record numbers of people into work, women, the population as a whole, got youth unemployment down. So we did a lot, but it all, to me, unravelled from lockdown, and then obviously it was a very difficult period over Brexit, and we can't deny that. And just as I thought we were going to get on with it, get those trade deals, we went into lockdown. So I don't want this to be a sort of a justification.
No.
I don't mean that at all.
Listen, it's great, mate. How's Philip? Is he all right?
Well, he wasn't too good. He had a couple of heart attacks and ended up having a quadruple heart bypass after the election last year. He is now fit as a fiddle. As I say, he's been completely replumbed, but it was a very difficult end of last year because they didn't know if he was going to survive.
Well,
they didn't know if he was going to have a heart transplant, but he had a genius surgeon and he is back better than ever.
Good man, give him my best. He likes to bet him. And listen, it's great to... You keep fighting. They should have you on the front bench, but they won't because you are outspoken. Listen, great to have you on. Esther McVey, former Minister for Common Sense on Talk Drive, 522. What do you make of that? Do you agree with her? 0344 499 1000. I asked her about reform because you would do, wouldn't you? But she says I'm a Tory through and through. Do you think the Tories can ever regain the trust? Personally, I don't, but people who believe in it will say. Yesterday, Jonathan Gullis said, I'm hanging on by my fingertips and I can't say that I might not. A quick voice note to the ad break. Steve, on lowering the voting age by Starmer. Go.
Labour and the left in general seem to think that all youngsters are like the Glastonbury crowd. Yeah, hard left, liberal, etc. What they don't realise is there's a hell of a lot of British 12, 13-year-olds now who can't have nice things. They can't have a nice holiday. Their mum and dad have probably lost houses, jobs or everything. In 4 years' time, when these kids are 16, they're going to be thinking and dreaming about moving out one day as well. And guess what? Unless they can buy an house up front with hard cash, they will never get on the housing ladder. They won't be able to rent and they certainly won't get social housing because they're at the back of the bloody queue. So they haven't thought of that, have they?
The Afghans fought and died alongside British servicemen, so we owe them a duty to bring them back. If people don't trust you to look after them, then that is really damaging.
Port House for the United Kingdom fulfilling our obligations to Afghans who served alongside British forces. We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 5:26, Jodie's very excited. It's a birthday evening. She's going out for dinner with Cameron, her boy. Maybe just tonight, Cameron will go down on one knee and will say, Jodie, today... he's not from Liverpool, is he? I'm not telling you where he's from. But anyway, tonight could be the night. She's expecting dinner. I don't know. We'll try and find out. But wouldn't it be romantic if he went down on one knee and put something on her finger? All right. 0344 499 1000 to the phone lines in Wolverhampton, the Black Country. Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening. How are you?
Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm all right, mate.
If all these youngsters are going to vote for Labour, what do they think they're going to get?
Right, I can't... Listen, I know I'm getting old, but it's really muffled. Move your mouth back from the phone, lovely man, and speak a bit slower for me. Go on, go.
I said, if these youngsters get to vote for Labour, what do they think they're going to get off Labour? Because all the jobs are going to be given to somebody else. So what are they going to gain by voting for Labour?
I completely agree, and I think, Stephen, I think the reason people are really angry about this, and I understand it, is that if this is nothing more than a political ploy, right, you know, I just have a real fear that in schools and in universities there's this sort of ideology being pushed upon our kids. And I can sit here and go, you know what, kids have got their own minds. I'm pretty confident they've got their own minds, but they're also sheep-like at that age, right? And you know, are they going to question? I don't know, but to me overall, right, it's pretty desperate a year in, isn't it? To be raising the white flag and going, oh, God, I need 16-year-olds to vote because I mean, he's got to have looked at the polling. I mean, something we haven't talked about already on the show today. I was never a fan of Jeremy Corbyn, but I'll tell you one thing I will say until I drop down dead about Jeremy Corbyn. He fought the election in 2019 on what he believed. He put it in the manifesto and he got more votes than Keir Starmer did. I wonder whether his offshoot party will have an impact on Labour as well, and that might be another reason why they're going down this route. But I'm with you, mate. I don't think they should assume that these kids are going to vote for Labour. Do you know what I mean?
Because all the people that they're letting into the country, all the jobs are going to go to those people.
What do you make of the Afghan blunder?
I've got a theory. Instead of sending them in planes, unmarked planes, they've told them to come across on the boat.
God, yeah, that's true. Let's go to Coventry. Thank you so much indeed, Stephen. Let's go to Coventry. Simon, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening, sir.
Evening, Jazz. How are you?
Oh, you know, another day, another, like, what the hell am I doing in this country? Just world's gone mad, mate. What do you make of it all?
Well, you know, I'm a bit conflicted on the votes for 16-year-olds because, like, on the one hand, if you vote 16, what you vote for is going to come to fruition during the next Parliament. And I know everyone says, oh, 16, they don't understand this, they don't understand that. But, do you know what I mean, my old man's 76 and we don't trust him with the remote for the telly.
Very interesting. All right. You don't have to go. Don't have a go at old people. That's me. I've got my senior rail card now. You little upstart.
But the big thing is, I mean, we've got to remember this is the party of Peter Mandelson and Alistair Campbell. You know, there's a big Machiavellian plan here where you give 16-year-olds the vote. Next election, they go vote for us, and we'll give you a referendum to rejoin the EU.
Is there a... Right, see, this is really interesting. A Machiavellian plan. I'm going to say something that will probably just go down like a lead balloon. I don't think this lot are as clever as Blair's lot. I don't think that... I don't think there's a theory. I think it's reactive. No, I don't think it's proactive politics. I don't think there was a manifesto. I think it has to be the least well-prepared government in history. They must have known for years they were going to get in. Let's be perfectly honest. The Tories were cooked for 2 years, right? Everybody knew that, right? With everything that had gone on. The first 100 days was supposed to be amazing. They got rid of the person, Sue Gray, who was apparently responsible for everything that was going to happen in the first 100 days before the first 100 days were up. I don't think there is a plan. I think this is another example of, oh my God, I've looked at that. It's like we talked so much about the winter fuel allowance, but can he have any advisors? Would any person with a brain cell looked at him and said, Keir, listen, that's 10 million people never vote for you again, you idiot. When he looked the waspy women in the eyes and lied, and the farmers and he lied, and all those sorts of people. I think this is desperate. You might be right, but I'm sorry if you're depending on 16-year-olds who can't buy beer, can't buy fags, can't drive a car, can't stand as an MP, and can't phone my radio station without asking their mum and dad, but they can vote for the next Prime Minister. I think you're on pretty shaky ground, pal. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think the winter fuel allowance is actually part of the plan because someone's looked at that and gone, right, the vast majority of these people are the baby boomer generation. They're all now in their mid-70s, so by the next election, they're going to be pushing 80. It's, you know, the average age limit. Most of them are going to be dead, so we're not going to lose that many votes.
Well, maybe you're right, pal, but one thing's for sure. I don't... And I go with Mike. Great article in The Sun today by Mike Graham, if you haven't seen it, page 10, the editorial. He's saying we need a general election. I think I don't believe Starmer will last the 5 years. Thank you, Simon in Coventry. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you, by the way, for your text, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Wayne's a brickie. Do you know how much money brickies earn? If they're good. Loads, man. I like Esther McVey, but she's delusional if she thinks the Tories will ever be Conservative again. Good point. Derek I like Esther, but she looks down and realises it's up. She looks to me like she knows the Tories are finished. Rob Blackmore agrees Esther is tarred by what the Tories have done, I'm afraid. Can't now be taken seriously on anything migration-related, as in government. They did this to us. Rob was in Broadway. JK, says Jack in Gravesend. Parents are still in charge of their children until 18, correct? That is when they become an adult. Therefore, do the parents not get the final say on how and when or if their kids vote on the day? Get Captain Hindsight out of office. Captain Hindsight. Vincent Morris in North Yorkshire, good evening. The young girl in the Union Jack dress will be able to vote next time. I don't think Labour will get her vote. Quite right. Pete McKee, I hope that's right. The only way Keir Starmer can win the next election is to fight on a rejoin the EU platform. The Labour vote will have slid to 0, so the only way to tap into the rejoin demographic by giving the vote to 16-year-old, it is part of the strategy. Let me tell you something, maybe I'm wrong. If he stood up and he went, I believe that the only way for us to, as a country, get on with it is to rejoin the EU. Do you think he would win? Do you think he would? I don't know. 0344 499 1000. Next on this show, a gentleman, a Labour councillor, who is going to tell me that allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to get the vote is absolutely the right way to go forward. I'm just going to go and rub myself... That didn't sound right. I'm going to get a cold towel. I'll be back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Saw the Sun newspaper today, page 10, a fantastic article by our very own Mike Graham on page 10, the editorial, fantastic, all about how he believes Labour is on its last legs and we should be calling for a general election. Mike back tomorrow morning, of course, 6 a.m. Morning Glory, the only way to wake up, for God's sake. Listen, thank you so much indeed for all your calls and your involvement. More of them coming up. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. You can send a WhatsApp voice note on WhatsApp. You can also send a text to 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. We say a very good afternoon to Sebastian Salic. I hope I've got that right. Labour councillor and political commentator. Sebastian, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, very well. How are you?
They said, well, I'm all right. They said to me, right, we've got a man on who thinks that this is a good idea by Labour to confirm that 16-year-olds will get the vote in the next general election, something that most people in this land already through a YouGov Snap poll have said is nothing more than a cheap trick by a government that's already under pressure and is raising the white flag because it sees exactly what's happening on the ground, which is that reform is hoovering up its votes.
I'm slightly confused by that because this was in the manifesto. So it's
you see, we haven't started, but hold on a minute. I was going to say something to you. It's about the only bloody thing that was in the manifesto, so I will applaud them for doing it because the rest of it hasn't been in the manifesto, has it, to be fair?
Well, like every government, some bits are, some bits aren't. But with this, it's slightly weird to be saying they're panicking, it's to do with things that are happening here on the ground. This was part of the plan that people voted for, that a majority of constituencies sent a Labour MP to Westminster to implement. So it's been part of the plan for more than a year now.
What is behind its thinking? Help me. When you say the plan, what is the idea for? And I'm not being flippant with you at all, Sebastian, and I appreciate it, but somebody wrote this list for me, and I really am not being flippant, but you plan as a party to allow children who right now are 12 and who are still getting child maintenance at 16, they can't buy alcohol, drive a car, gamble, work, buy fireworks, spray paint, use a sunbed, get a tattoo, buy a lottery ticket, go to war, sit on a jury, become an MP, and they can't phone my radio station without asking their mummy and daddy, but you're going to allow them to pick the next government. How? Why?
Yeah, I can completely see why as soon as you start thinking about votes at 16, your mind goes to, oh, what else can you do at 16?
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing this morning when this story first broke. And then I realised that we're quite lucky in the sense that we have a precedent for this. Scotland, as you'll know, and as your Scottish listeners will know, have allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local and Scottish Parliament elections for more than a decade now. And a lot of very clever people, much cleverer people than I, have researched that and have come up with some really encouraging conclusions. So the turnout is higher among 16 and 17-year-olds than it is among 18 to 24-year-olds. They vote more regularly into their 20s, so you help them build that habit. And social class has a less impact on how they vote. And this isn't about how can Labour win the next election. This isn't political at all. This is about what's good for democracy.
Sorry, it's not political. It's not political at all. It's not political at all.
I think this is about what's right for democracy. I mean, in a sense, you could argue it is political in the sense that have a look at if you were 16 in 2010, for example, when the Tories first came into power, you didn't have a vote. Look at what happened to your life. I'm not.
There's no part, by the way, my friend, but first time we've spoken, that I am anything other than massively. I think the Tory party is finished. But I just wanted to bring up something you said. You changed your mind when you said a majority of people, because it was only 34% of the British public, about the same people who support this in the YouGov poll that vote. Get that. Scotland and Wales. You speak to any Welsh person and they will tell you that 25 years of Labour rule has destroyed Wales. And look at Scotland. Look at the SNP. Look at what that voting did. I'm trying to work out, OK? The cynic in me, and I guess a lot of people who have been on the show already and have contacted us this afternoon, are saying that let's put it a different way. Are you mentally prepared? I mean, how can you be getting child maintenance and make such a huge decision? I know it was flippant, some of my examples, but are these kids prepared? And then we have the added concern. I have several daughters at university. I get story after story, Sebastian, about how a left ideology is being pushed in schools, is being pushed in universities. Is that part of the plan? Because we hear that on a daily basis. You're frowning, but I mean, that's a fact.
I don't want to get into weird university conspiracy theories, but frankly...
What do you mean a weird... hold on a second. My daughter told me the other day that in Edinburgh University, a lecturer stood up and said that the British Army is responsible for every war in the last 100 years.
Yeah, look, I think we're getting off topic here, but I will answer your question really briefly. I think universities should be a melting pot of free speech. I want to see lots of ideas pushed around at universities, and some of those ideas will be on the extremes, but it's good for young people to get all of those ideas. But anyway, back to voting. Let's talk about what happened under Cameron, and I just use that as an example because it was the last long government. Never mind that it was a Tory government. If you were 16 in 2010, your EMA would have got slashed if you qualified for that. Your tuition fees would have tripled. Nobody would have built the house for you to buy. It would have got increasingly unaffordable, and you'd never have had a say in that. And it's the same with Brexit. You will suffer the consequences, but you would never have had a say if you were too young to vote. The point is, we don't make any qualms about older people voting, who, frankly, and I'm sorry to say, when it comes to Brexit, many of them have now sadly died, and we'll never see how that plays out.
Is that why you supported the abandonment of I mean, somebody said it to me just now, and you might think this is that why the Labour Party decided to ban the fuel allowance for old people? I was reading once that somebody said in the Labour Party that these people won't be around to vote in the next election anyway.
No, look, that was something that came in very soon after Labour got into power. The decision was made in July, and it was largely because of that massive black hole that was found in the finances.
You and I aren't going to get on well. You talk about a black hole. Explain this to me then. All I ever hear about from your leader is a £22 billion black hole. Why would you, if you've got a £22 billion black hole on day 3, give £11 billion worth of pay rises to your union paymasters, including, by the way, 20-something% to junior doctors who just told your government to shove it because they want more? That surely is not how you deal. How do you deal with a black hole? Is not by giving pay rises. Come on, that's a fair comment.
Because nobody could get a doctor's appointment a year ago before Labour came into power. It was impossible. Do you remember how broken the country was?
Absolutely. Do you not think it's broken now? Do you think it's less broken, Sebastian?
I do think it is. I can go and get a doctor's appointment when I need one now, and I couldn't do that a year ago, that's for sure. I can get on a train and know it's not going to be cancelled because of strikes. That definitely wasn't the case a year ago. A lot happened very quickly to clear up the urgent problems our country had.
Do you genuinely say, how would you describe the last year? Because many people, I mean, let me be really honest with you. I'm actually proud to be British, and I was so disillusioned with a party that had lied. I mean, I jokingly said that I think Sunak could have given every person in this country £1 million, and they'd lost the ear. I don't think Keir Starmer won the election. I think the Tories lost it, but that happened. I was hoping that when I had a Prime Minister who talked about grown-up politics, and whenever I say this to a Labour commentator, they fob me off. I thought that was what I was going to get. Then we had free suits and free glasses. Then we had let's screw the pensioners. Then we lied to the waspy women. Then we lied barefaced to farmers. Our veterans are on the streets. We've got a worse situation with migration than we ever had before. And I wasn't a fan of Rwanda. And you're sitting there telling me it's been a success. I don't understand. What's been a success? Tell me a success.
Sure, you've listed a lot of things that either didn't happen or are inaccurate, but let's put that to one side because I do want to...
Well, no, what's not accurate? Your leader didn't stand in front of waspy women and say you're going to get that money, yes or no?
Well, that was a discussion that was had a very long time ago. You're talking about veterans on the streets. I don't really know what that's about. I don't think...
You don't think there are veterans on the streets whilst people are being housed, yeah?
I know there are veterans on the streets. I don't think Labour has caused that. And look, if you want to get onto immigration, there was a very strong track record this year that we can be really proud of. There's a lot of progress that we frankly didn't see from the Tories.
But what progress on immigration can you crow about?
Let's start with the big one, which is...
smashing the gangs. That hasn't happened, yeah?
No, let's talk about asylum claims. That's the really crucial thing, because remember what the Tories did. They changed the law to tie their hands so they couldn't process asylum claims. They talked a good game about...
I'm not supporting the Tories, mate, not in a million
I know
years.
You are, but I'm telling you about what happened before, because then you have
Tell
to...
me about what's happened since, because you said we've done a lot. What have you done on immigration?
So when Labour came in, day one, month one, scrapped Rwanda, scrapped the law that meant they couldn't process claims, hired a load of people to process claims. The backlog, the immigration backlog that was going up and up and up under the Tories is now down by 8%, which is really a lot of progress.
Down by what?
8%.
But the boat crossings and the people, because your leader told the British people from that lectern, I'm going to smash the gangs, numbers have gone through the roof. I'm not, this is really important, there will come a point where every Labour supporter in this country cannot, like, all I hear from Tories is, COVID and lockdown. I'm not interested. You failed because you lied to the British people. Your leader said, and I quote, I will smash the gangs. There are more people coming in boats to this country than there were in the last few months of the ill-fated Tory government. You have not improved immigration at all. You haven't. Not in a million years.
I completely understand why you're focusing on small boats, because it's visual. We can see it.
Yep.
It's really easy to grasp. But the reality is the problem is people stuck in hotels, in asylum hotels, which are bad for them because, frankly, they're not very pleasant places to be. And in some cases, sadly, they haven't been very safe places to be. And they're bad for the taxpayer as well, because we're paying for people to live in limbo in these hotels. If you process the claims, you can shut down the hotel.
I've never, ever disagreed. I've never disagreed with that. I find it astonishing, genuinely, that in the year 2025, this country is incapable of coming up with a system or people that cannot say yes or no pretty bloody quickly, and then we have the power and the right as a country to do the right thing. Completely with you on that. But successive government, you might think my opinion is wrong. My deterrent is a very simple deterrent. It should be less easy to get here, but more importantly, the pull should be less, because I don't care whether people please don't take this the wrong way. We can have different political ideologies. That's the way of the world. That's a democracy. I believe that the British people have finally worked out that if you live your life correctly, I said it earlier on the show, and you pay your taxes, you don't ask for a handout, you try and do right by your kids and your society, the majority of people in this country are going, hold on a minute, you can come into this country either illegally or legally and seemingly be treated better than us. I don't know why I live my life the way I do. That's what I think all politicians, including Reform, including all of them, I think they don't understand the depth of anger in this country, Sebastian. I really believe that.
Specific about that, because you've made a big claim there, and we need to walk this through. So you told me that if you come into this country legally or illegally, you can have, did you say a better life or as good a life as somebody here?
Absolutely. Well, you try to. Do you talk to anybody in England? Do you try explaining to people who are really struggling that you can come here and be given a doctor's appointment in 24 hours, a mobile phone, a hotel, you can get an illegal job probably with Just Eats or whatever, and seemingly you can get handouts. Explain to me how that's going to please British people.
Who are we talking about here? Are we talking about asylum seekers or are we talking about legal immigrants?
Asylum. Well, economic migrants, that's what I call them.
Okay, so people who come over on small boats specifically, and you're telling me that they get put up in hotels. That's true. I wouldn't agree that living in a hotel, which we've seen have been very dangerous for people, is as good a quality of life as anyone else.
But what about the quality of the life of the people in the towns that are being, if you like, now filled with people who haven't been vetted and are living without us knowing who these people are? Serious question.
Yeah, but I just want to stick on this previous point because we haven't fully addressed it. You also said that when people come over legally here to work or to study, they can have at least as good a quality of life courtesy of the state. Can you explain to me, please, how that works? I'm genuinely curious.
No, but you're talking about legal migration, which I don't... You're not going to like my view on this. I'm talking about... I can give you my view on legal migration, which was started by your party. I'd like to take a lot of the people in this country who are on long-term unemployment and are not disabled or not mentally ill. I'd like to get them encouraged and involved in doing stuff in the community and doing the very jobs that the Labour Party for many years and other parties have felt we need to bring people in. I get doctors and I get experienced people. But what I would love to know is an answer to that question, which, as with other Labour... You won't answer it. Explain to me... Let me tell you about a woman in Bury called Beryl, who rang me the other day. 76 years of age, husband had just died, worked all her life, paid a stamp. Can't see a doctor, can't see a dentist, has had her winter fuel taken, lives in a town where about 100 yards from her house there's a migrant hotel, is scared to go out. They are not families, they are young men hanging around on street corners, smoking and drinking. She says, and I quote, "I've lived my life correctly all my life. I feel like a second-class citizen." So if we're now being straight, you answer to her direct, not me. What do you say to her?
What aspect do you want me to tackle? You raised a lot of issues there. What specifically do you want to talk about?
How would you... She would say, I'm worse off than those people. That's what she would say. That was my example.
So if she's had a winter fuel allowance taken away, that means she earns more than £35,000. And she thinks she's worse off than somebody who has come here from a dangerous place.
Oh, my God, I can't do this. What, France? France isn't a dangerous place, is it? The reason they come... Sebastian, with respect, the reason people come to the United Kingdom, right? And all right, before you say that, Ryan, just answer me one question, please, right? I absolutely accept if you come from a war-torn thingy that you would want to come here. But I'm going to ask, and you won't answer this, why would you leave a wife and kids behind and come on your own? Why would you not, when you get to the first country that's safe, Sebastian, where there are not bombs raining down your head, why wouldn't you stay there? I'll tell you why. Because we are soft and we give more than other people. That is why this country is having as many migrants as it is. That's a fact. You know that's true. But the Labour Party won't admit that, will they?
Well, the Labour Party is being damn firm on these people. We have the immigration white paper come out. It's going to be harder to move here. It's going to be more expensive to move here. It's going to be harder to get citizenship. It is getting really serious, but nobody's talking about that. And I think it's very convenient that nobody's talking about that because it's easy to bang on about this stuff and it's easy to get angry about it.
Listen, great to talk. Don't think me rude. I have an ad break. We'll agree to disagree, but we appreciate you being on the show. Good to get both sides of the coin. Sebastian Salic, a Labour councillor there on Talk Drive, 10 to 6.
16 and 17-year-olds will be allowed to vote for the first time across the whole of the UK. This brings the whole country in line with Scottish and Welsh elections. We're going to let kids vote. Brilliant. It may well end up backfiring on this government. I think this is genuinely insane. We don't let kids buy cigarettes or booze, but, well, without their fake ID, obviously, but we're going to let them vote over who runs the country. This is properly and utterly insane.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 6 minutes to 6. That cool. That wound you up, didn't it? Sebastian, exactly everything that's wrong with this bloody country, and it's elite, says Matt. Bernie Taylor, this Sebastian is not living in the real world, is he? It's impossible to get a doctor's appointment now. In fact, I would say it's now worse under the flip-flop than it was under the Tories. Bernie's in Poulton. Votes for 16-year-olds. Maybe all secondary schools should have a Labour and Conservative group to get kids into politics, voting and debating. This is quite interesting. This from Dave in Worthing. My son's school did a mock vote the other day. This is interesting. The choices were Labour, Conservative, Liberal, Democratic and Green. The childcare member said there was no reform at all. Schools are biased. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We'll head to Cardiff, is it? Lisa, you're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes only, sweetheart. What you got?
Hello, lovely. Right, how old is this Sebastian? Because he is clearly the exemplifying the reason why we can't give kids the vote. I don't know what planet he's on. We're in Wales, as you know, 25 years of Labour. It is absolutely appalling. Can't get a doctor. Can't that. It's just don't go there.
The thing is, listen, I like Sebastian. Sebastian has, I believe in a democracy and people have a vote. But you know, I mean, what was his comment? Well, that pensioner, that she's on 35 grand a year. No, she isn't on 35 grand a year.
I go shopping and I see the pensioners putting their yellow sticker reduced food. They've got a loaf of bread, some eggs, a bit of ham, all reduced. They are absolutely struggling.
But did you notice what I did say? Did you hear what I did say? No answer to this. If I just take they're escaping a war-torn country, and I say to him, why didn't the man bring his wife and kids because they could be bombed? No answer. What happens when you get to the first country where you aren't having bombs raining on your head? Why wouldn't you settle there? No answer. And why'd you come here? Because we wiped their backsides. Absolutely no answer.
Right, exactly. And keep flying the flag. You're marvellous.
Love you, Lisa in Cardiff. Thank you. Let's head to London. David, you're on Talk Drive. How are you?
Well, I don't know what that Sebastian's on. He must be on some sort of drugs. Look, listen, my just to counter it, my granddaughter's school in Essex, they had a mock vote and Reform won by miles. So that's a good one to start with. Jeremy, I'm going to ask you a question. There's only 2 countries in Europe who've got first past the post. Can you name them?
No, you've made me look like an idiot, but I don't mind. I've spent 30 years looking like an idiot. You tell me.
Great for it. Great Britain and the well-known Belarus.
Oh, is that right? The country that we get accused of being if we ever dared to leave the ECHR. Brilliant. Yeah, great.
The thing is, going back, look, if the government really believed it, let's have proportional representation. Let's bring it in. Let's see then everybody can vote. We'll add it all up and see what we all think.
Well, he thinks the Labour Party have done a good job for 12 months.
Yeah, well, he's on a lot of drugs, isn't he?
I don't know. You can't make these accusations. Thank you, my friend, to South Yorkshire. Morris, are you...
Hi, Jeremy.
Are you a senior, Morris, or a Morris minor?
I'm 25. I'm not senior. I'm Jones.
Brilliant. What can I do for you? 2 minutes on Talk Drive. Straight over.
It's very quick. That guy says we can get doctor's appointments now. Lie. I've been trying for an ear infection for 6 months. I've had to go private. Secondly, the only argument against so-called people coming from war-torn countries is the fact that none of them are actually coming from war-torn countries.
I made the point to him. He didn't answer it. I'll say it to you. I just said it to Lisa in Cardiff. If I was escaping a war-torn, bleeding country, and I have great sympathy for the Ukrainians and all of that, I would bring my wife and kids. And also, I would stop. And if France was the first place that I got to where there weren't bombs raining down on my head, I would stop in France. But, oh, no, I don't want to stay in France because they'll only give me a bleeding tent. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get to Britain because I'll get more than a lot of people who have worked all their lives. And I get called listen, he's got a different opinion, but they won't answer that fact because they're dead set on appearing on the worldwide stage or globally or whatever to be... I mean, there's nothing wrong with appearing to be great, but I think the problem arises when you can't afford to do the same by your own people, and your own people are suffering. And I don't think that's wrong.
Quickly, please, Jeremy. He says as well that somehow what they're getting in the UK isn't better than the average quality of life of a UK citizen. How many UK citizens on the average wage do you know getting a 5-day, 7-day-a-week, 24-hour concierge service at a 4-star hotel? Not many.
Well, listen, he's just told me that pensioner was on 35 grand, which is total rubbish. Listen, great to have you on. Thank you so much indeed, Morris. Keep your calls coming. This is Andy in Northants. It's good to have Labour people on, Jez, because all the time they just prove over and over again they cannot be trusted, never giving a straight, honest answer and ignoring how the majority of the British public are thinking. Matt in Grimsby, Jez, all this talking is getting us nowhere. When are we going to take a stand? Maybe we should all go down to Dover. Don't you start on me, Matt. Loads of people to get on. Thank you, Robert. 0344 499 1000. Carl's in Derbyshire. Mark as well. Thank you for your message. We got news on the way, and the Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, kicks off the next hour. What do you want to ask, Richard? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Richard Tice is next on Talk Drive. We'll head to that news, but please remember one thing. You can ask him anything. Ask Richard Tice anything. 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. News at 6. Here's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome Welcome back. 3 minutes past 6. We're live across the United Kingdom. I was just slightly in the middle of eating a custard cream there. So listen, this is the day. The most important thing about today, which is, of course, the 17th of July, 2025, is that Jodie is 28. And tonight her boyfriend Cameron is taking her out. And we're all very hopeful here that he will get down on one knee. I, of course, couldn't do that because I'm going to get up again. But hopefully he'll ask her to marry him in between the big steak dinner she's expecting. We say a very good evening. The Deputy Leader of Reform and MP for Boston and Skegness, Richard Tice.
Very good evening to you.
You're going to say happy birthday to
Happy birthday, Jodie. Best of luck, fingers crossed and all that.
Well, listen, wouldn't it be great if Cameron did the business tonight?
It would be huge.
There we go. 0344 41000, text to 87222. My friend, I've just had this. Did you hear the last man on from Labour? Labour councillor and commentator Sebastian Salic, who told me, I was telling him the story of Beryl in Bury, who rang me, who's 76, lost her husband, has paid a stamp for 50 years, can't see a doctor or a dentist, has lost her winter fuel allowance, her shopping's gone up fivefold. She feels that her government puts her behind people who are coming in from other countries. And he said to me, and I quote, she's probably, what, if she's not getting that allowance, she's on £35,000 a year. He then told me that people who come to this country come from war-torn countries. So very calmly I said, so if I was leaving a war-torn country, I would A, bring my wife and kids. When I first get somewhere that's not being bombed, I would stay. Oh no, I wouldn't stay in France because you only get a tent. I will say this publicly to anybody. The reason we are being subjected to so many migrants, in my humble opinion, Richard, is because the pull is so great in this country. And it's okay, I suppose, or has gone under the radar when we were all right. But when your own people are missing out, then it becomes a massive issue, and Reform is tapping into that.
Well, we are. We're leading in the polls, as I think everybody knows, and that's because we've got a very clear message that we need to stop illegal immigration. We've got a plan to stop the boat. We've got to leave the ECHR. We've got to pick up and take back, which, by the way, the French have a legal obligation to do, which they are in breach of their international obligation. Funny that the Prime Minister, who seems to love international law, with his beloved Attorney General, Lord Hermer, they never seem to pick up on that international obligation. It's the only one they don't.
Interesting that, isn't it?
Interesting that. And then, obviously, on legal immigration, the numbers are completely bonkers, and that's why we've been saying, actually, we need net zero immigration. But
don't you be insulting net zero because you go to prison. You could go to prison.
No, but the get out of jail card is that it's net stupid zero.
Yeah, but then you could basically face life imprisonment, according to Dale Vince, if you say stupid net zero.
I look forward to having another chat with Dale. Look, the reality is the immigration system is completely out of control, and the scandal this week of the Afghanistan super injunction has I think highlighted to people that not only are billions of pounds allocated to tens of thousands of more Afghans to come to the UK, the vast majority of whom are chancing their arm, let's be honest about it, essentially claiming that they were helping, they were fighting, they were translating alongside British soldiers, and we know that actually they weren't.
Well, it's interesting. Bob Seeley made a point that I think is very, very salient, and I want to ask you loads on this subject, which is that he said that if you take the 23,900 and you add families, you could be talking about the size of a small town, upwards of 150,000 people. Now, I agree with you. What the British people want to hear, and Nigel did his video, is do we know anything about any of these people? But they haven't been vetted. Now, we're on slightly dodgy ground. We found out tonight that British spies and SAS soldiers have been included in the MOD data leak, and I want everything. I want to know, has that person lost their job? Why was this kept from MPs? How many salient politicians knew the truth?
It was kept from MPs because the Conservative government at the time, in the Cabinet, talked about it, had a debate, and decided that they would keep this from the British people.
So Mel Strive, when he told Mike the other day, didn't know he was lying?
There was a number of people in the Cabinet who knew, they had a discussion, and they decided to keep it from their fellow MPs, to keep it from Parliament, to keep it from the British people, tens of thousands of Afghans, and that they would not include them in the immigration figures, is the allegation, that it would cost billions of pounds, and they were quite happy to keep a super injunction for a couple of years. John Healey, the current Defence Secretary, was told before the general election he chose not to use parliamentary privilege, but to keep it secret.
Didn't
the
they
Prime
also...
Minister was told just after the election.
Well, wasn't it also true that in November, when these wonderful journalists tried to fight this in the court, the government were against making it public? So they are as complicit as the Tories.
Because they've been in charge for a year. If in the first few weeks of their office they had come to Parliament and said, look, this is wrong, then I think the British people would have had a different view about the Labour Party. But, you know, this is... And so I was bobbing up and down yesterday in PMQs. I wasn't selected. Fine, lots of people bob, you often aren't. But I wanted to ask the Prime Minister, I wanted to know exactly when he was told about the super injunction and how many other such super injunctions the government has.
How many other secrets?
How many other secrets that they're not telling us about?
Can I ask you to, you don't have to, but there's some breaking news which you won't know about. Diane Abbott has just been suspended by the Labour Party. Diane Abbott yesterday defended comments about racism that led to her year-long suspension from Labour. So as we head to a party recess yesterday, Starmer lost the whip for 4 Labour MPs who apparently were behind the scenes. 3 lost jobs as trade envoys. Diane Abbott has just been suspended from the Labour Party. Does Hardman Starmer think this is going to... Is he not thinking, hold on a second, Corbyn could hoover these people up, couldn't he?
Well, who knows? But
we hope.
Well, what we do know is that there was a poll out the other day that said a Jeremy Corbyn party might poll as high as the Labour Party, somewhere in the sort of the mid-teens. Look, who knows? But it's quite clear that Starmer and Reeves have lost control of the backbenchers, and these decisions, it's a matter for them. But I think the reason that Rachel Reeves was in tears the other week was because she realised that her party is completely ungovernable and she cannot control public spending, and we are heading towards a serious financial crisis with a Labour Party that is basically gazing at its navel and sort of debating who can be the most socialist and the most Marxist or the most communist.
It's quite interesting. I wanted your opinion on this because I was talking earlier about, because I'm old, obviously 60 now.
You don't look it.
You're very kind. No, we're not talking about that. Listen, you completely thrown me with what you just said. Somebody said to me the other day, we know what happened in 78 and 79. They spent money they didn't have, which is seemingly happening right now, and the IMF get involved, and interest rates go to 30%, the unions can't get the pay rises, it's financial meltdown, and that's what many people who remember the 70s fear will happen. I want to ask you about money, because, you know, the Afghan thing, 7 billion. Today we discover, in front of every newspaper, that those left-wing ambulance-chasing human rights lawyers are going to charge huge exorbitant figures to try and get these people another £1 billion worth. So that's 8 billion, right? Now, we talked about... The Labour guy didn't like this. There was a £22 billion black hole. He went, I said, but if you had a black hole, and you're a businessman, right? I wouldn't, on the first day, spend a further 11. I'd try and shave some off the 22. Where does the 8 billion come from? Because, again, the British public are going, so you seem to come up with money for the Afghan situation, or the compensation, or the Chagos Islands,
which is tens and tens of billions.
But
so they've got that money.
So where is that money? Why?
But they haven't got £1 billion a year for our pensioners, 22,000 of whom are in my constituency of Boston and Skegness alone. All of this money is borrowed, and in the last financial year we borrowed 150 billion. That's a huge sum. I'll tell you what that is per house. £5,000 per house last year. This current year, we're going to borrow at least that. The economy is now falling, jobs are plummeting, tax revenues will fall as a consequence, and so that's why we can't keep borrowing £5,000 per house.
How do you
per
borrow?
year
So
with
imagine,
no economic growth?
Imagine you're the Chancellor, because that would be a shout, wouldn't it? With your old money pin in your pocket. Imagine, just answer me this, right? So you get into power, and the country is skinned. As a businessman, right? What do you do? What is your ideology? What's your thought process, Richard?
What we've got to do, and everybody knows it because everybody sees it every day of the week, is cut the vast, obscene, negligent amount of wasteful spending that is everywhere, that we are now seeing in the 10 councils that we run. And we're lifting the lid of spending and the contracts that have been placed and the waste on the credit card statements. It's everywhere. Wasteful spending. So you've got to come down massively hard on wasteful spending. I said save £5 in 100. What I'm seeing so far, we could do at least that. And actually, you can achieve that. For example, take welfare. Right? We all want a world-leading welfare system for the genuinely disabled, the genuinely vulnerable, those who cannot work, who are looking for work. But why are we paying welfare of £1 billion a month to foreign nationals who supposedly came here to fill jobs? In other words, to work.
Well, listen, I've got a theory, and you and Nigel might disagree violently. I've said this for 10 years. I'd go further. There's 4 million people claiming benefits, right? And I get told repeatedly...
It's way more than that, by the way.
Yeah. All right, let's take the 4 million figure. I get told repeatedly they're all mentally ill disabled. I don't believe that for one second. I believe that, unfortunately, the welfare state that was set up as a great concept has become a career choice for many. So if 2 million, right, are able to do some form of work, and we're paying them whilst they're looking for work, close the borders and make those 2 million people give something back to the society that is paying money for them in the community.
And that's why
is obvious to
me.
me.
That's why we've actually got to have a pause in immigration to allow people to work out and to allow a new government to work out what is genuinely going on here. And obviously with welfare, the first thing to do is to have face-to-face assessments to find out who is taking the mickey and who is genuine. This stuff is not rocket science.
Why don't they do face-to-face?
They used to until COVID, and then of course you had the whole working from home nonsense, and surprise, surprise, the claims have skyrocketed ever since. And so all over the place, what you've got to do is you've got to cut out the waste, cut daft regulations, useless things that get in the way of growth and productivity. Who of your listeners, how many message you or tweet you saying, I love GDPR? And it's really good and useful. Come on, folks. Let's make this a new
Texas right now. I don't even bloody well know what GDPR is.
It's just annoying. That's what it is. It's very expensive, and it damages productivity.
All right.
Across the whole bridge. So you deal with daft regulations.
One message, and I share this. This is from Louise, right? And she sent this message in earlier for you because she knew you were coming on. One of the things that is patently obvious in government, and I hear this every single day, we've talked about this before, but she wants an update, is the so-called blob, the thousands of civil servants. I mean, I've talked to you before about how in the middle of this show a year and a half ago, I'm reading this press release that says that, you know, Home Office officials are using British taxpayers' money to sue their own government who are democratically elected because they don't agree with Rwanda. And I'm going, hold on a second, you're working for me and I'm paying you, and then... How is Reform, if elected, going to deal with what seems to be this huge entity that runs this country?
There is a blob that think that they run the country, and they basically view elected politicians as sort of cherries on the cake that you should sort of pat on and look at and say,
pat
there.
Pat a cake, yes.
Pat a cake, there, don't worry, dear chap, we'll do all the work. And the Tories allowed them to do all the work and didn't put any performance-related requirements on them, and that's what you've got to do. And you've got to basically make people do the jobs that the elected officials, whether it's councillors or members of parliament, have been elected to do. And if you don't want to do that job, please go and get another job, and we'll give you a splendid reference. This stuff shouldn't be that difficult, but we are already experiencing the power of the blob. But the good news is that's giving us the experience to know what to look for.
Do you believe that Reform has the... I mean, does it have the strength to take the blob on if elected?
We will take them on, and we've got lots of great people applying to be Reform candidates up and down the country. And look, will it be easy? No.
No.
Is it worth trying? Absolutely yes, because otherwise the country is literally doomed. So we will take it on, we'll get lots right, we'll make some mistakes.
I say it every day, Richard.
And some of your listeners will, of course, get frustrated because we all want things to happen tomorrow.
But all you have to do is almost Trump-esque, which is stand there. I mean, I've said this every single day. I'm going to do this for a living, but I will be standing in front of people and saying, right, don't laugh, but, you know, been married twice, not me. I've made a few mess-ups, I've done this, I've done that, but here's what I believe in. This is what I am putting to you. If elected, I will do that, and I will take on the media, and I will take on the legal system, and I will take on the blob, because that's what you elect. And we'll go on this journey, and I'll tell you when it's good, and I'll tell you when it's bad, and that's it.
That's why when I've talked about Net Stupid Zero, I wrote yesterday to the 8 largest potential bidders for huge offshore wind farms, they're going to bid for them this August, and I said, just put you on notice that we're leading in the polls. If we win the next general election, then you invest at your peril, because the British people are not signed up to paying huge subsidies.
Did they get a response?
Ever higher, but some of it actually. So we know that they are absolutely terrified because they realise they've been rumbled. They've been rumbled for the con that renewable wind farms and solar farms and battery storage systems are, and so we're calling them out. So already, even years ahead of the next general election, we're starting to have an influence.
Would Reform frack?
Yes, we would frack. We've got, give or take, a decade's worth of shale gas in North Lincolnshire.
How does that not make us money?
That's energy treasure under our feet. And all that money would stay here in the UK. And of course, we'll prove that it's safe and okay to do so with test wells and things, so that people who may be concerned don't need to be concerned.
And you can also deal with people who are against it by subsidising their bills in the local areas.
There's a whole raft of ways to do it. What we do know is that where you use your own oil and gas, that's the treasure under your feet, guess what? In America, their prices are a third of ours, and they're growing and they're getting wealthier, and it's not a coincidence.
Couple of questions, some good, some bad. Steve from Cambridge, as a 2-year member of Reform, I'm proud of the progress you're making, but can I ask, are you in talks with any more ex-Tories? So Jake Berry, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Jake Berry was on the show yesterday, good friend of mine, and before him I spoke to Jonathan Gullis. Now I want you to watch a clip, because I don't think I've ever seen anybody who has a belief as depressed as Jonathan Gullis. Have a listen. This was Jonathan Gullis yesterday. Is reform something you've thought about, JG?
Look, I've been a member of the Conservative Party, Jeremy, for 18 years, my entire adult life. Tragic as that may sound. I've never felt so despondent and disheartened with the Conservative Party, but having been a member for that long, seen the good, the bad and the ugly, I really want to believe that at some stage we're going to fully acknowledge our mistakes, completely understand and empathise why some of my former colleagues, like Jake Berry, have chosen to go to Reform UK. And of course, at times, I've looked at things and thought it could be quite tempting, but ultimately...
Have you had any conversations with Reform?
No, no conversations at all. No conversations at all. Look, at this present time, Jeremy, I'm clinging on by my fingernails and fighting and holding on for the Conservative Party to finally turn a corner. But I've never felt so almost politically homeless in my lifetime.
Would you rule out right now ever joining Reform? You can't, can you?
No.
You can't?
No, I can't, Jeremy. You know, can you? If you say never say never, right? Like, if I said no, if I said I can rule it out, and then I look like a bit of a donut in 12 months' time if I change my mind, wouldn't I?
The next time you have him on, you should ask to look at his fingernails, because I suspect that they're in a bit of a state as
in
he
all
clings on by his
seriousness,
fingernails.
listen, JG's a friend of mine, right? Love him or hate him, whatever. But I will say this: there is criticism of Reform when ex-Tories do make the switch. Are you aware of that criticism?
We're well aware of it. Look, at the end of the day, I've always said, and I've been very consistent about this, that we never give a running commentary on any discussions we may or may not be having with anybody. And that's a standard thing. But whether people could join us from the Labour Party, we've had defections from Labour councillors recently, or from independents, which is obviously another view, or from the Tories. We are ourselves. We are not Tory 2.0. We are Reform. We are common sense. And that's why, and we're conviction people, and that's why we do. The most exciting thing, actually, is the quantity of high-quality people who are coming to us and said, I've never been involved in politics. I never thought I needed to bother because I'd let people get on with it. But they made such a mess of it. Actually, I've got a successful track record. I need to get stuck in and see if I can help out. And
what I love about you is that you will answer these questions. Richard, why don't your MPs or MPs en masse call for a vote of no confidence in this government? We are a joke and it is getting worse. Darren in Essex.
Darren, look, the reality is we could call for it, but it would go nowhere, because obviously we've got a huge Labour majority with this loveless landslide that they've got, although it does seem to be slipping away. You've lost Darren Abbott today and 4 yesterday. But look, at the end of the day, we've just got to keep banging the drum, making a difference, having an influence. For example, on Net Stupid Zero, we're having an influence even though we're not in power. They're terrified of us. They've accused me of all sorts of disgraceful things today, which is great. It means I'm getting in their head and worrying them, as is Nigel.
Please, Chris Maitland, asked Richard why Reform didn't attend the rape gang meetings yesterday. Chris in Littlehampton.
Because I think that was organised, if I'm right, and I could be wrong here, but if that was one organised by Rupert Lowe, then that wasn't something we would organise. But we have been absolutely rock solid about having a public inquiry into the rape gangs, and now the government, they have indicated they're going to do it, but what we've actually got to make sure is that they will do it, and it will be prompt, and that's the big question.
This is quite near the mark from Rob in Newcastle, who's a massive reformite. Will they stick to getting rid of people who came illegally? The phrase deporting en masse people who cheated with no amnesty. Millions need the commitment, because in his mind, that's what tipped the scales for Donald Trump in the US.
Yeah, we've said very clearly that those people who are here illegally, should be removed. The issue is we've no idea how many are here illegally. We've no idea where they are. We've no idea, frankly, how to find them currently. But all of that can be sorted, but it will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. We have to be honest with people about that. But you've got to work very closely, for example, with the fast food companies, many of whom are using as delivery cyclists or whatever, bike riders, people who are working illegally.
Well, I mean, I said that. I mean, you were on the show that week. I mean, that day that broke, I'd have taken the doors in those hotels with the police at 6 a.m. in the morning, literally taken the doors in on camera, and I'd have frog marched those CEOs of those companies up Downing Street. I think the feeling that I get is that so many people, and this is where the game changes, I think, for reform, and you know what I think about it all, is they're almost so hacked off with what has happened and what they've had that they see this opportunity and they're believing in this opportunity. And a lot of them, I don't even think it's doubt. A lot of them are like, but I mean, will they? Can they? Will they?
And those are all the right questions.
And I get that. And so for me, you know, we talked last time with Starmer and the Ming vase didn't say anything. Reform has to keep banging the drum, but saying to people, what you said, doesn't matter if I get slaughtered in the press, legally. And we'll be honest with you, we'll stand in that lectern and go, I've had a crap day and we've been blocked here and blocked there, but the fight continues. That's what I think.
And for example, so absolutely, and those are the right questions that voters should ask. Will we? Can we? How? And all we'll say is trust us. When we say we're going to try and do stuff, we will try and do that. Will we be blocked at certain points?
Yeah.
Yes. Will we make mistakes? Yes. But will we get lots right? Yes. And is it worth trying? Absolutely. Every day, every hour of every week.
Got to finish slightly light-hearted. Today, the Labour Party have announced that they'd like to lower the voting age to 16. Now, we thought we would have a little look, Tice man, at what you can't do when you're 16. So, the Labour government says that they will allow 16-year-olds to vote. At which point, it's also fair to say that at 16, you can't buy alcohol, you can't drive a car, you can't have a bet, you can't work full-time, you can't buy fireworks, spray paint, you can't use a sunbed, get a tattoo, buy a lottery ticket, go to war, sit on a jury, become an MP, apply for a mortgage, and my absolute favourite, Richard Tice, you can't phone my bloody radio station without asking your mum and dad at 16, but you can vote for the next Prime Minister. This is desperate politics by the Labour Party, isn't it?
Desperate politics, which is why I stood in the House of Commons today and said that reform is completely against 16 and 17-year-olds having the right to vote. Interestingly, they themselves are completely split down the middle as to whether or not they should have the right to vote. But your list there is the best list, actually, I would expect that from your good self, of all of the reasons why.
Phone a radio station, you've got to ask your parents, but I'm going to vote, and they're 12 right now.
Actually, that is a sensible constraint if they were to phone you, I mean, honestly.
Yes.
But...
See, never misses a chance, does he?
But look, I mean, you've said it there, it's bonkers. And most 16 and 17-year-olds are at school or at college.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing, learning how to get on in the world. And then when you're 18, you're legally an adult. And that's the moment in which
me one thing, if
most people should go to work, start paying taxes, and therefore actually taking an interest in how those taxes are spent.
I know you've got to go, and Ryan's shouting at you, but do me a favour if you do get elected. I think there's a real issue with education and what's being pushed upon our kids by ideology in schools. I think it's frightening.
We've got to stop this gender claptrap. Absolutely outrageous. And
did I tell you what somebody said to my daughter at Edinburgh University? The lecturer stood up and said, by the way, while we're at it, the British Army have caused every world war in the last 100 years. I mean, it shouldn't be working.
This stuff is unbelievable. But that's one of the reasons why we're doing so well in Scotland, because they've gone down this complete gender claptrap rabbit hole, and we just tell it as it is. There's only two sexes and there's only two genders, and forget the rest of this nonsense.
You're a legend. I'm being shouted at. Would you like a custard cream before you go?
Definitely. Thank
go
you
on,
so
have a
much.
custard cream. There you see, I'm bribing politicians now. This is Talk Drive.
I'll have to declare.
16 and 17-year-olds will be allowed to vote for the first time across the whole of the UK. This brings the whole country in line with Scottish and Welsh elections. We're going to let kids vote. Brilliant. It may well end up backfiring on this government. I think this is genuinely insane. We don't let kids buy cigarettes or booze, but well, without their fake ID, obviously, but we're going to let them vote over who runs the country. This is properly and utterly insane.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back right on 6:30. Kev here from 7 o'clock. Some breaking news, sad news as well. Rescuers working to free passengers after a pretty horrific, it sounds, bus crash in Somerset. This is the road, by the way. It's a long, windy road to Minehead from the centre. The Weddon Cross is the area. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, saying thoughts with everyone involved. It looks as if school children will or could be involved. We'll certainly keep you updated as soon as we have it. That's a breaking news story. Bus crash in Somerset, Weddon Cross on the Minehead Road out of Taunton. Rescuers working to free passengers. We'll keep you updated in the news. Thank you for your text messages. 87222 Louise. How can a Labour council think that the old age pension is 35 grand? Yeah. Drew, wonderful show. Love hearing the truth. Labour is very good at smoke and mirrors. Don't forget about the German deal. Vince. That's not Dale, Vince, is it? History shows every Labour government destroys the UK, running it into the ground, destroying industries and businesses, taxing the people. History shows it again and again. Sam, you'll love this, Ryan. Oh, I never thought I'd say this, but I'd actually vote for Jeremy Kyle if he ever stood. The guy actually says what we all think. I quite like him now. Ryan's ignoring me today. This is all because, right, this is all because I made a joke in the office area about somebody else being more important than him, and he's been a right bitch ever since. 03, what did you buy Jodie for her birthday? You can't tell me on air. Bit old Victoria's Secrets action going on there secretly. You see, a lot of people think that there is still something going on between Ryan and Jodie, the two people who apparently don't really spend any time together and pitched up on a Greek island together. I mean, Sam and I didn't get invited, did we, Sammy? But off they went. Maybe that's why Cameron won't give her his ring. I mean, a ring. 0344 499 1000. A very good evening to the man who was supposed to be sitting here. But I had a bit of a problem on Monday when I got on the train and I got to Woking and then they all stopped. Good evening, Peter Cardwell.
Good evening, Jeremy Kyle.
Do you know, Christ, what's wrong with you? Do you not? You look as if you're in a. Do you want to polish your mirror? The lens is. You look as if. What's the matter with you, man? You polish your. Oh, better. I can see. I never got to tell you. Thank you for jumping in on Monday. Do you know what happened?
Tell me.
If you get this right, I'll give you a tenner. Trains are fine. Get to Woking. There's a heat wave. It's 30 degrees. Basically, the entire Woking signal unit, which affects everything going in and out of London on that line, is broken. No trains. Go home. Got home at 6 o'clock, by the way. Listened to you the first hour. Was depressed before I started listening and nearly wanted to never... Anyway, never mind. Do you want to know why the signal box at Woking was closed?
Was it too hot?
Nope.
Tell me.
Two more guesses for a tenner.
It was the wrong type of leaves on the line.
No, don't be ridiculous. Come on.
Electrical faults. I don't know.
Honestly, hand on heart, they had a rain shower which flooded the signal box in the middle of a bleeding heat wave. I'm not even joking. The great British disaster. I know. So thank you, mate, for jumping in. Pete, I'll start with what Ryan rather brilliantly put together. Under Labour plans, 16-year-olds who are currently 12 will be able to vote for the next Prime Minister, but at the same time, they won't be able to buy a beer, a packet of fags, drive a car, have a bet, work full-time, get married, buy fireworks, spray paint, use a sunbed, get a tattoo, buy a lottery ticket, go to war, sit on a jury, become an MP, apply for a mortgage. And my absolute favourite, Peter Carboy, they couldn't phone this radio station without asking Mummy and Daddy's permission first, but they can vote. What is wrong with them, man? This is a desperate situation.
So back in the day, when I was about 15...
Well, how long ago was that, Cardwell?
A long time ago. I rang the old talk radio and I had to get my parents' permission before they put me on air as a caller.
Did you in the old days? I once phoned Capital Radio pretending to be an engineer because the jingle used to be rocking from the top of the tower, and I said, we're coming to sort out your building because apparently it's rocking at the top, and the bloke said, don't be ridiculous, and put the phone down on me. Just thought I'd share that with you.
Okay.
What do you make of this, 16 or 17-year-olds? Is it desperate?
So we have children who were born in 2013 who are now going to have a say in the future of this country. Look, unless you're a political nerd who goes around reading autobiographies of politicians like I did when I was that age, you're not going to have a clue about politics. It could make a difference as well, especially in council elections where you're dealing with very, very small numbers of people, maybe 100 people. There are quite a number of politicians who have small majorities in parliamentary elections as well. If you get even sort of one school or a couple of schools make some promise to them, well, they could all vote for you, or many of them could vote for you. Therefore, it could really change the outcome of elections. I think that as well, but there is this lazy assumption that young people are left-wing. Quite a lot of them are, of course, but you look at, Nigel Farage's TikTok, for example, you look at how many followers he has on TikTok and people who are younger. Well, I think this might backfire for the government. I think it's a silly idea. Of course, it's been implemented in Scotland and in Wales for some years. It doesn't.
That's what gave Labour power for 25 years in Wales, and we never speak to anybody who doesn't say Wales is on its backside. And it also gave us the SNP, who believe that a man can rape 2 women and go into a female prison. It doesn't give you much hope, does it?
Doesn't give you a lot of hope necessarily, no. I don't think that other places this has been done around the world, it has worked particularly well either. I think you've got to say, look, there's an age of majority. There's an age where you become an adult. 18 seems to be a reasonable time for me. That's, of course, been changed from 25 and then 21 at various points. Everybody over 18 has the vote. And that's the way it should be. So it doesn't seem to make sense to me, especially when there's so many other things you can't do as well. And also, most 16 to 18-year-olds, some of them do, but most 16 to 18-year-olds don't pay any tax. They say, no taxation without representation. Well, I say no representation without taxation.
And also, my friend, their parents are still getting child maintenance, and to the age of 20 if they're in full-time education. So that's right. Should the parents not have... I think it's a frightening thing. Let's talk about the main news story of the week. Another part of this today, the Afghan cover-up. Just a couple of questions. Were you aware of this as a journalist? Were you aware that this was... You had no idea. I mean, I've watched politicians blame each other. I've watched all this. And for me, it's really, really simple. Seemingly, they found £7 billion for this disastrous leak. I haven't heard whether the person's been sacked. I'd like to ask how 23,900 people, plus all their families, could be 100,000 if Bob Seeley's right, have come into this country unvetted. Mike Graham made an accusation yesterday, which I thoroughly support, which is that this has been going on for 2 years, and there are certain areas where there's been unrest which can now be proven to have these Afghan people there, which is what a lot of communities are saying. But here's the bit I don't get. We're so skint we can't afford the interest on the debts we've got, and yet we found £7 billion to house migrants, Afghans. A further £1 billion might be as a result of the compensation bill. We found billions to give the Chagos Islands and billions to give his union mates pay rises who now want more. Where does that money come from? They borrowed that money, have they? Or... Oh, they have borrowed that money.
Or they find it back down the back of the sofa. They always say there's no money for certain things, and then there's miraculously money for other things. Also, the welfare bill recently was meant to save £5 billion. It's actually going to cost £100 million a year to the taxpayer. A piece of legislation introduced to save money, which is now going to cost money. It is farcical, and the fact is the taxes are going to go up in the autumn time. There's no doubt about that. And for Rachel Reeves to say, well, it'll all be fine. Well, it won't be fine. And the thing is that this is a huge mistake. This leak was a really, really catastrophic error. The government and successive governments are now picking up the pieces.
Do you, just something about you, because we've worked together a while. Can I just break this news? That Somerset bus incident crash, that awful crash in Minehead, has now been declared a major incident. I say a bus was carrying children from Minehead Middle School. Avon and Somerset Police said and was carrying approximately 60 to 70 people. A number of casualties have been taken to hospital. We'll keep you updated, of course, here on Talk. I spoke to Esther McVey earlier, who looked depressed. I spoke to Jonathan Gullis yesterday, who freely admitted he couldn't rule out joining Reform. When you look at this, I know this is your job, there's almost a resigned feeling when I look at you. I sort of, I'm passionate, but sometimes I wake up and I think, God, what's next? I mean, it is a particularly miserable time for a lot of people, isn't it, to be fair?
Jeremy, this country's on the slide. We should have a lot of things that we're really, really proud of. There's so many things that keep going wrong. We pick up the paper, we switch on the radio, we look online, and day after day we're getting stories of incompetence, of cover-up, of things that should have happened that haven't happened, things that have happened that shouldn't have happened. There are so many different bad things that are happening, and I think that the country is quite depressed at the moment. We need a bit of hope, we need a bit of summer sunshine and a bit of summer optimism. I just don't think we have it, and the thing that you need to give as a political leader is competence and hope. Those two things are all that you need to give, and Keir Starmer's giving neither of those things at the moment, and people don't feel there is any form of, well, I certainly don't feel that there's any sense that the government is getting on and sorting out the country, and especially when it comes to things like, oh, we'll give votes to 16 to 17-year-olds. Why? What are you doing that for? Is that just to sustain yourself? Is that because you think you'll get votes at the end of it, that you'll get a secure Labour majority in 2029? Well, I don't think that's going to happen anyway, and I think it could backfire very badly on the government. I think a lot of Reform UK voters could come in from that age group, but really there is a lot that should be functioning in this world, in this country, that just doesn't. Do you think that this government is cooked, pal? Whatever it does? I do. I don't think it can win in 2029. If it wins, I think it will be a minority administration. I've talked before about how I think there could be a coalition or some sort of confidence and supply deal or some sort of deal done with the Liberal Democrats. I would be very surprised if Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister after 2029. He's also, he's in his late 60s now. For example, I'd be surprised if he says, yes, I'm going to continue on into my 70s, so there could be some sort of leadership election. I think he'll go voluntarily rather than necessarily be pushed out. Labour doesn't usually do that. But certainly there is a real sense that things have to change in some degree. One final question. You're amazing. Can Nigel Farage be the next Prime Minister of this country? Yeah, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. I think perhaps of a minority administration rather than a majority one. But yeah, it's a difficult system to break through, especially when you're a small party. But if Reform UK can get the votes, really interestingly, so the Lib Dems had 3.5 million votes at the last election, 72 seats. Reform UK, 4.1 million votes and 5 seats. Those were 10,000 in every constituency rather than just pockets. They need to balance it out. They need to get their strategy right. Nigel Farage himself has said they actually need to learn from the Liberal Democrats. So they targeted seats. That's exactly what they did. They targeted seats, and it might be in the next election that Nigel Farage thinks, I'll target 150 and use that as my base. Are you all right? You a bit of a cold going on there? A little bit of a sore throat. Yeah, I'm taking some honey and lemon. You need to suck on a fisherman's friend. Well, not recently, but I'm hoping to be fighting fit for 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Got a really interesting interview, which I did earlier today as well, with a man and wife. They were hostages in Gaza. They've obviously been released. One was there for 51 days, another for 484 days. I spoke to them this morning. We're getting that, and we'll play that out tomorrow. So it's going to be a fascinating thing in Drive tomorrow. Good man, Pete. Listen, thank you for Monday. Apologies again for that. Peter Carwell, fantastic as ever, on Drive tomorrow from 4 o'clock, right here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The legend that is MG back tomorrow morning from 6. And if you haven't caught his article already in The Sun, on the editorial, page 10 today, he's calling for a general election. Hello to Simon from Stoke. He says, glad to see Jonathan Gullis is considering moving to Reform. He was a brilliant MP for us in Stoke-on-Trent and would definitely be elected if he stood down and stood up for reform. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, it happens every night now. He wasn't away. He was away yesterday. John Lucas, the night news editor for The Sun, is back. How do we describe you? There's that. What's that? Is it Midnight Caller? That's what they're all calling you now.
Right.
Do you want to say happy birthday to Jodie? She's 28.
Oh yeah, yeah. Happy birthday, Jodie.
Yeah, she's going home to Cameron. We're wondering whether he's going to go down on one knee and give her the chance to be Mrs. Cameron, or whether he's just taking her out for a steak dinner. But either way, she's going to have a good night. You all right?
Yeah, very well.
Day off yesterday while we were still at it?
Yeah, lovely day off, yeah.
Great, brilliant. Tomorrow's paper, I mean, honestly, this what I love about this station and The Sun is you won't let go. Room, board and mayhem. Tell me more.
That's right. So we've had this long running, we've been doing it all year, looking at these migrant hotels.
Yep.
We've obviously done it with the ordering apps, Deliveroo and Just Eat and all the rest of it.
Yep.
It goes much, much further. So we have examined the last 6 months of court records, and we've found that there's around 350 asylum seekers who are living in these migrant hotels have been up in court already this year. So it's just in the first 6 months of the year, and these are for there's 29 alleged sexual offences. So
sexual offences, 29.
Yeah, so
10%.
That's right. So rape, sex assaults, exposure. 58 theft-related offences. There's robbery offences, violent crime. I mean, there's lots of minor offences as well. But this is a real snapshot of what's going on, and it highlights the fact that obviously people are concerned about people living in their communities who we don't know who they are.
Sarge, listen, this is one thing, and I can bang on about it here. I've got friends who will say, "Come on, Jez, you need to say even more." We talk this week about the Afghan thing, and we talk about numbers and we talk about vetting. There's no bloody vetting. And for people, I mean, I used to live in Windsor. Datchet, a lot of people retired to, right? Don't live there now. Is overrun with this migrant hotel. People won't like that word, but it's true. There are people who have retired there, worked there, all that, who are scared to go out, who feel that their community is being degraded. And if you try saying that, the leftists go, but these poor people. No, 10% of them have been in court for sexual crimes. That's against girls and women. I don't understand why the left don't go, that's outrageous.
Yeah, right.
I mean, excuses for criminal activity, man.
That's it. And we were at live court cases today as well. Yeah. So we had this incident at the hotel in Epping. We would have seen it where there was a protest the other week because of a chap being arrested for alleged sexual offences. Well, he was in court today, so we heard more about what this chap is alleged to have done. So he's a guy from Ethiopia. He'd only arrived 8 days before this happened, and allegedly he had approached some teenage girls on the high street in Epping, in Essex, and obviously can't go into too much detail about it because it's at a very early stage in the court case, but he'd inappropriately touched them, and he's been arrested. So that caused quite a big commotion at that hotel, which is obviously not what anybody wants to see. But the point is, it's not a practical solution. There's lots and lots of people who've come here. It's very difficult to accommodate them. But this solution of them staying in hotels, in communities, it doesn't make any sense.
And then 2 weeks ago, you remember the renting thing? That councils across this country have been instructed by the government to cure this problem of migrants in hotels, to go to landlords and say, we will give you a free refurb of your property and a 3-year deal for migrants if you kick those tenants out. And we look back at the British point of view and we go, so what happens to the rental market? How do people who can't afford a house? I mean, listen, what's good about this, and whatever anybody says, is that we have to keep on doing this. And it's not, people go, oh, poor migrants. No, they're committing crimes, not acceptable. Shown the Gryffindor. What a great headline for the newspaper.
Yeah, terrible news yesterday for Emma Watson. So she racked up these 12 points and got a driving ban. Slightly better news today for her. Her long-term stalker, this chap, he's an American chap called Chad Bustow. And
Is that a name? Chad Bustow.
It's very American.
Hey Chad, how you doing?
He had turned up.
Bustow?
Yeah, exactly. He turned up here. He turned up in Oxford last year, where she's studying at university, and he said that he was trying to connect with her. And he was arrested then, and he's been held in immigration centre since then.
Has he been deported?
He has now been
so
deported.
it is possible. It is possible. I'm not a massive fan of hers, to be honest.
Yeah.
I could have dealt with him in about 5 minutes. Why would you want to connect with someone? I'm not very good about how she treated the other woman who made her famous. The Megamind, a monster supercomputer that helped cure cancer, slash NHS waiting times, and spark a tech jobs boom, was switched on yesterday. The £225 million machine, named Isambard Al, that's because of Bristol, Isambard Kingdom Renal, is now live in Bristol and is powerful enough to process 80 years' worth of calculations in a single second.
That's right. I mean,
that's amazing.
So this is what AI really is, hopefully, all going to be about. I know we're all worried about our jobs and all the rest of it, but
I'm not. My job's fine.
well, we'll be okay. Hopefully.
Listen, the female following you've got, you can be going OnlyFans with Sarge from The Sun. He's gone red again. I love it.
Hopefully, this is the future. So it's going to. It was the tech secretary, Peter Carl, unveiled this, and he gave some sort of personal testimony saying that his mum had cancer, and if she had been scanned by this thing, it could have picked up on her diseases, and hopefully, this will hopefully help to revolutionise healthcare.
That'd be brilliant.
Also, it weighs the same as 25 elephants in a room the size.
See, this is what worries me, but I love about The Sun. How do you know that 25 elephants weigh the same as this computer?
It's a standard unit of measurement, isn't it? For
an elephant?
In tabloid speak.
OK, fair enough. Consciously uncoupling. This is good, but this is brilliant. Just tell us this story, Chris, because this happened to me once.
Lovely video. So Coldplay, we already said the other week they're the most boring band in the world.
Honestly, they're there. You wouldn't go to a Coldplay. Oh, we're showing the video on screen. Oh, we're showing it now. If you're not watching, so they're playing, and they have a camera that goes round the audience. Kiss cam.
And they go to this couple, and as you can see, they didn't particularly want to be on this kiss cam.
No.
And while they're reacting like that, Chris Martin says, "Oh well, look, either they're having an affair or they're very shy." So he didn't help them at all.
No.
It turns out that this bloke is the CEO of a major US tech company called Astronomer, and this lady very quickly established that this lady is the company's head of HR. Which is going to open up a whole can of worms.
I was once in Dubai, this is absolutely true, I was invited to this dinner party, and I was probably a bit, had a couple, and I said to this woman, "It's very nice to meet you, this is my husband," and she said, and I said, "Oh, you're married, right?" And she looked at him and she went, "No, of course I'm not, because he won't bloody well ask me." And they had this row, and then they left the table, and I went to breakfast in the morning, and she'd flown home. And I was just being nice. Looking forward to the newspaper, we always do. Sarge from The Sun, back on Monday?
Yes.
Room, board and mayhem, show the Gryffindor, the Megamind, that computer, which apparently weighs more than 25 elephants. What did you say to me, Ryan? Oh, you're back tomorrow with Peter?
Oh, come on, yeah.
That'll be fun. Right, 7 minutes to 7. Back in a minute.
16 and 17-year-olds will be allowed to vote for the first time across the whole of the UK. This brings the whole country in line with Scottish and Welsh elections. We're going to let kids vote. Brilliant. It may well end up backfiring on this government. I think this is genuinely insane. We don't let kids buy cigarettes or booze, but well, without their fake ID, obviously, but we're going to let them vote over who runs the country. This is properly and utterly insane.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
4 minutes to 7 on a serious note. Happy birthday, Jo. She's an amazing girl from Liverpool, 28. She's going out tonight with Cameron, who's going to buy her a steak dinner and hopefully give her a ring and say, I love you and I want to be with you forever, which is amazing. Ryan's off on holiday next week. Can I tell them where you're going? Barcelona! Jodie's in charge. Sam will be here because he and I never go on holiday anyway. So we'll see Ryan very soon. Final call of the day. I had a Kev. Warwickshire. Mike, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you?
Not bad for a balding 60-year-old has-been. I'm cracking on. What's happening?
Well, the same age as me, so it's not a bad age.
Are you 60?
Yeah, 60, yeah.
Yeah? Have you got any hair?
Yes, but not necessarily all in the right places.
Brilliant. That's all I want. I don't want to get involved in your pubic region. Right, can you crack on, please? You've got 2 minutes.
It's very quick. They've changed the way that you will, or they're looking to change the way that you will vote for a mayor.
Yeah.
So there's 52%. They seem to be changing all the rules because they know they're not going to get in.
I agree.
If the rules stay as they are. Now, this to me is like you would see in a third world country or some puppet state where they change the rules because they know they're not fit for purpose.
I have to say it's a great call to finish on, Mikey, because I agree with you. I think that the lowering the age for kids is a blatant attempt to try and, if you like, snare a vote. They're changing the votes of certain how mayors elected because reform got 2 mayors. Certain councils weren't allowed to vote. I can only say, and I might sound really naive, that anybody who believes that this government shouldn't be in power and the Tories are busted flush, whether it's reform or anything else, has to keep believing and understand and believe that their vote and their view actually matters, because I look at it slightly differently, which is I don't think that Starmer would have done this and be panicking as much as he is unless he genuinely believed that the threat from that new party, and it might be them, it might be others, was not absolutely real. Listen, I have to go, Mike, but in Warwickshire, thank you so much indeed for your call. We say a very good evening to Kev O'Sullivan. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yes, good.
Honestly.
Big day?
Well, do you realise, this is true, that for all the things you can't do at 16 apart from vote, the most shocking is this, Kev. A 16-year-old could not phone you on Talk without asking their mum and dad's permission, but they can vote for the next Prime Minister of this country.
Yeah, and my favourite is they can't buy a razor.
They can't buy spray paint or fireworks. The whole thing's,
right?
honestly, mate, I've got the best list in the world. It's ludicrous.
You could go on for that.
I thought it was great last night, by the way, the show about the BBC woman.
Well, listen, we're going to cover that in a little while. Our big question is what a fool she is. Deborah Turner, notoriously useless, has been useless her whole career.
We both